Aha, and we're live. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Green light for our sound machine, by the looks of it. Pardon me. Sorry, folks, I'm just shutting down my speaker system there to avoid any kind of interference. Just popping on a wee bit early before 10 o'clock, as always, to say hello and make sure everything's working okay before we get going. Tonight's our double chapter episode of Children of Dune. We're going to do 44 and 45 tonight. Got some interesting things to look at as well, which is interesting. There's Sean Wyland saying good evening. Good evening, Sean. How are you doing? Thank you very much for joining me, as always. Good to see you, sir. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one tonight, I think. And it will probably go quickly again, as usual, I think, with these chapters. There's a real build-up of pace with these at the minute, I think, Pardon me. There's Carlos Crescelius. We crowd number 1 saying, hey, Doc, guys. Hiya, Carlos. How you doing? Thanks very much for popping in, as always. Good to see you. There's 10 o'clock, folks, so I'll just say the general hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for joining me. My name's Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight we're on our Children of Dune book club with 2 chapters for you. Quite interesting ones. Fast little chapters again. Chapters 44 and 45. I'm reading this version of the book. Who's this? Golance, I think. Yeah, Golance Science Fiction Edition. And on that edition, it's page 290. It's the epigraph that starts this chapter is natural selection has been described as an environmental selectively screening for those, as an environment selectively screening for those who will have progeny. So that's where we're kicking off tonight, folks. Pardon me. And kind of right off the bat, I've got a little bit of interesting stuff to have a wee look at. I need fluids. And I think Julian was on last week saying he had a touch of that. I think he had a bit of a cold, and I think we've got a touch of a cold here as well. So bear with me if I'm a wee bit nasal this week, folks. Weather's atrocious here. You wouldn't even know it was summer. We've just got that kind of electrostatic grey, kind of hard to look at, chromatic kind of clouds all the time, and it's just been every type of rain you can imagine. I don't know, I've lost count today. We've had it today, except for the really, really heavy stuff, but we've had all sorts. So it's just been a bit funny weather, But I think I've been out with it, getting caught in a few drizzles and stuff with the doggies, and I think I've caught a touch of the cold. So saying that, I can never really tell. I'm just going with it. Pardon me. So, yeah, interesting stuff to have a wee look at tonight. I imagine that the chapters will go reasonably fast because they're dialogue heavy again. But we've got a few things in each of these chapters to have a chat about. And I suppose one's focusing on Ghanima paired up with Irulan. The other, I suppose, Leto being paired up with Sabiha, and then a kind of Namri and Gurney sort of pairing, if you like. I suppose we've got some infamous kind of writing from Frank in our next chapter, chapter 45. But we'll start off. This is an interesting one, and I'll explain why in a wee second. But we'll start off with the epigraph to chapter 44, just quickly to get it read here. So let me just take some fluids first, I think. Pardon me, clear my throat. Get some precious fluids in it. Right. Natural selection has been described as an environment selectively screening for those who will have progeny. Where humans are concerned, though, this is an extremely limiting viewpoint. Reproduction by sex tends towards experiment and innovation. It raises many questions, including the ancient one about whether environment is a selective agent after the variation occurs, or whether environment plays a pre-selective role in determining the variations which it screens. Dune did not really answer those questions. It merely raised new questions which Leto and the Sisterhood may attempt to answer over the next 500 generations. Now, it's a really interesting epigraph. This is from the Dune catastrophe, by the way, after Hark al-Ada. Pardon me. Now, there's something saying, hi Doc, hi all. Oh, right. I'm wondering what the wee crowns were, and it says top fans. Very, very good. I'm not sure what that is. I must investigate. Oh, do you know what? I'll do it another time, actually. Because I'm bound to click something I shouldn't and lose things, you know. But hi, Cynthia. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us. As always, we're just getting started with our epigraph. We've just read through it once. I was just saying this is a very interesting little epigraph. Natural selection, evolution by means of natural selection, has been described as, here we go, an environment selectively screening for those who will have progeny. I kind of wondered by who has described this way. And my thinking immediately went this way. Where humans are concerned, though, this is an extremely limiting viewpoint, and I was going, yes, that is correct. Pardon me. Now, here we go. Reproduction by sex tends towards experiment and innovation. It raises many questions, including the ancient one about whether, so this is is it either A, environment is a selective agent after the variation occurs, or B, whether environment plays a pre-selective role in determining the variations which it screens. Dune did not really answer those questions. It merely raised new questions which Leto and the Sisterhood may attempt to answer over the next 500 generations. So, first of all, what we'll say about that, I suppose, is I think that this is a kind of a presentation of Darwinian and Lamarckian viewpoints, if you like. But this is far too coherent, and this is immediately where I went, that in terms of the discussion here, I immediately thought, this is not Frank Herbert's words. These are not his ideas. And I went to do a search on Google and asked Google, just in terms of the AI, who has said and put in these quotes here. Pardon me. And it told me that it was attributed to Frank Herbert, and I knew it wasn't. And then I had a think about where Frank gets his information, and I found it, would you believe, literally just before the program started here. So what you're actually reading here, let me get it for you. You might find this interesting. So if you're having a wee look, particularly the bit about reproduction by sex, tends towards experiment and innovation. So let me just look this up for you, and I will read you something. I think this is an interesting little thing. Now, where are we? There we are, just at the bottom of this. So this is, I'm going to read you the entire paragraph of this here, but the part in question we're talking about is at the end of the paragraph. Pardon me. So it's just to give you context. Pardon me, and excuse me tonight. Hopefully the throat will settle. So here we go. So far as variation is concerned, Darwin had to be content with showing that it does occur. To later generations, he left much unfinished business in the way of research, inseparably connected with the study of reproduction and inheritance. The issue was long clouded by the fact that some individual differences seem to be inherited, some not. Where a new individual is formed by the separation of a part of the old, characteristics remain substantially unchanged, as every orchidist who has grafted apple trees well knows. But where two individuals contribute in sexual reproduction to the formation of a new one, each contributes only half the necessary complement of determiners, the other half being discarded on a heads or tail basis. Thus, as we say, chance enters into the picture twice, once in selecting the contribution of each parent, and again in selecting the contributions that will be combined in any particular case. Sexual reproduction, by making possible new combinations of old characteristics, is a steadily acting means of variation. And this is the bit that we're interested in. As reproduction without sex tends to conserve, that with sex tends towards experiment or innovation. There we go, word for word, pretty much that bit there. Now, if you want to know my source, of course, it is, we've talked about this book before. So this is Frank Herbert quoting directly from page 110 of Where There Is Life, An Introduction to Ecology by Paul Bigelow Sears. Interestingly enough, I've discussed this book before. And do you know something? I was actually kind of telling myself off that whenever, now unfortunately I don't think we've had too much of this stuff, but whenever Frank produces this kind of stuff, that I have known where he gets it from before. And I suppose I'm going to have to admit it, I get that focused on words and things sometimes that I forget to check his, well, I try to hopefully, but I forget to check the science, and I caught this one. But generally, there's this book is Where There Is Life, An Introduction to Ecology. And goodness, actually, folks, today I had to do an emergency sellotaping because when I just instinctively, oddly enough, went for this book. And sure enough, I found exactly what I was looking for simply by looking up natural selection. It has one entry in this book because it is a book on ecology. This book is hugely influential on Frank Herbert because it's also, I believe, I think in my PhD I mistakenly said that I felt that he'd read Erewhon as a young person. Perhaps he did. But I certainly think that there's a connection between this book, Dune, and Erewhon, if you like, and kind of if it wasn't the case, then this is the book that led Frank Herbert to Samuel Butler as well, because if he's directly quoted, this is not the first time he's directly quoted from this, and I suppose Herbert's most famous quote about ecology is actually from Sears' book, but it's a more general quote about science. He just changed the word of it. But within, just to let you hear this, by the way, within this book is a discussion of Samuel Butler. Perhaps today, now this is Paul Bigelow Sears' Where There's Life, I believe is 1962. Just I thought I'd quickly read it to you, because you might find it very relevant. Let's see. Shall I give you the whole paragraph? I'll give you the whole paragraph. Every bite of a great power scoop, every snorting push of a bulldozer, every pipe pouring wastes into once clear streams, every stack belching fumes into the mushroom cap of unclean air that hovers over our great centres is testimony of man's growing power to change his environment. Pardon me. The resulting flow of consumer goods has been accepted as our measure of economic health, with the plethora of food and fibre made possible by working diminishing acres under forced draft. The problem is no longer how to produce, but how to stimulate consumption. That truly beautiful mechanism, the automobile, now engages a substantial part of our labour force in its production and in serving its various needs. Whether or not it is made to last, fashion dictates that we must be ready to discard it as clogging the lines of transport and hang on, I missed the line there. Must be ready to discard it as a child does a plastic toy. In use, it alternates between clogging the lines of transport and acting as a deadly missile. Who is master, man or machine? Was Samuel Butler prescient in suggesting how easily man might become the slave of his own creations? And there we go. That's the same book. It's an interesting book, by the way. This one's 1962. It's published in 1962. This one's a later edition, a Laurel edition, I think, by Dell. And it has an updated introduction by Paul Bigelow Sears from 1970. So and it is really, as I said, if you consider, depends on what you think about ecology. Is it either a very modern science or, we can go back to Hesiod with ecology and that kind of thing. I think of it as a very old one. But there you go, all in one package. There's your Erewhon reference, your Samuel Butler. But in particular, this section within this epigraph, that's Frank is quoting Paul Bigelow Sears, Where There Is Life, page 110. So I was well chuffed to find that. There we go. So what he's essentially saying within this epigraph is that either, I suppose, the natural cycle, but reproduction, sex, basically ends towards experiment and innovation. It raises many questions, including the ancient one about whether. So these are the questions: is environment a selective agent in regards to variation? I suppose. After the variation occurs, right? So, in other words, is environment post-selective, if you like? The other option is whether the environment plays a pre-selective role in determining the variations which it screens. So, in other words, one is suggesting post-selective, and the other pre-selective, if you like. I've kind of went with one is Darwinian and one is Lamarckian, or sorry, Lamarckism. Environment can be pre-selective. It can. My understanding is that impacts, things that go on within the environment around the mother can affect, genes in utero. So prior to the baby being born, if you like. However, afterwards, I think no. Lamarckism, I suppose, is one of it where is the prevailing idea of evolution. In the 19th century, possibly 18th century, prior to Darwin's and Alfred Russel Wallace, theory of evolution by means of natural selection. It was the dominant kind of theory within, we'll say the Victorian era would be a better kind of way. So it's as I've often pointed out, the whole idea that people present that the idea of natural selection, that paper was so shocking to Victorian Britain, etc., is not true. Evolution as an idea is part of the conversation, if you like, of the zeitgeist, of the spirit of the times, if you want. And oddly enough, Samuel Butler's involved in that because of his attack on Darwinian evolution. Later on, there kind of was a bit of a revolt against Darwin for a while, and Lamarckism, or soft inheritance as is also known, had a little bit of a kind of resurgence before it kind of pittered away, I think, so that's quite interesting, and so sorry. There's Chaya Rivka. Oh, sorry, hang on. Something we said hello. Christopher Crowley saying hi, Doc. Hi, Christopher. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us. And there's Chaya saying shalom, all shalom, Chaya. Good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us as well, as always. Cynthia saying from the epigraph, interesting that only Leto and the sisterhood are mentioned as experimenting with this. The purported author doesn't know about the Thylax, I assume. And Sean saying this part is super interesting. Well, there's more. Yeah, it is. There's more, I think. Chai is saying, not sure it was common knowledge that axolotl tanks were female Thylaxi. I don't think it is. Pardon me. At this point in the book, I'm pretty sure it's a mystery that hasn't yet been discussed really heavily or solved. I think if we'd had it, we would have had a good natter about it, Chaya. But I don't think it is at this point. Sort of discussions of tanks, etc., have all been around the hate Gola and Bijaz, I think, and it seemed to be I don't know, something different. I think there possibly. Not too sure. Sorry, read on with your comment. Not sure it was common knowledge yet that axolotl tanks were female Thylaxu. They may not have considered face dancers and Golas as human. Not sure Thylax are considered human. I kind of go with within the Dune universe. I think nobody's human technically. If we had a baseline for Homo sapien, I think there would be enough variation. For example, because of people on different planets. I think that over all of these years, 10 thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of the Dune universe and humanity being out amongst these worlds, I think there would be a fair amount of variation within the humans. We're told of the variation within the Fremen. Pardon me. And as I seem to recall, it was a soft inheritance, a tribute. But it was that I think they developed, is it slightly shorter bowels? in order to deal with the way they manage water, something like that. That's way back, I think. So my opinion is technically I don't see anybody as human within Dune. I've said this before, but I get where you're coming from. Um, there's I suppose it must be what we would consider extremities away from what we would consider as normal humans, And I suppose ultimately, whenever we do look at these questions of these different groups as we move down into the history of the Dune universe, is that we're all of these groups are evolving in different ways. Evolution is from I've often argued I think is the dominant theme all the way through the Dune series. Because we'll see the ecological theme peters out. After I think by the fifth book, I think we're done with it. The sixth book, it's irrelevant. Arrakis is gone. I think if I can remember correctly, I might be a book back and forward there. Carlos is saying not even the Gauls themselves that remember being decanted knew the tanks were Talaxid females. I think it is one of the big mysteries within the books, and I think it's it has a reveal, doesn't it? I think. Again, my memory's not good enough, but I think it's down the road. God Emperor of Dune is known that X does genetic experimentation. Why Nori Malfi is one example. Yes. Aha. Yes, interesting characters. The no genes. Looking forward to having a look at that. Especially kind of with that little. I think we had that little revelation of the no genes being within the Fenring family, and also within, I suppose, how closely is it our Farad'n is to he's a close relative of Fenring apparently, and I think that's where the no gene comes from, and that's going to be developed, I suppose, the idea of no technology, if we call it that, no science. It's an interesting thing. I'm really looking forward to it actually. So as I said, it's a very interesting little epigraph, and before we focus too much on that, I think quite new questions for which Leto and the Sisterhood may attempt to answer over the next 500 generations. It's an interesting thing. It's after Harq al-Ada, the Dune catastrophe. And I suppose that the question is, one of the things I'm wondering is who these we know who Harq al-Ada is, and the phrase after him being put in front of a lot of this is suggestive of who. I wonder who is this historian that's presenting these little epigraphs here. We've had a few from after Harq al-Ada, and I'm trying to figure out, is it an affectation that attributes the work to Harq al-Ada, or is it simply a historian who's come after him? And we can probably assume that that's a fair enough thing, because the Corinos, really, their main role in these books, Irulan and Farad'n, is to be historians, isn't it? I think. Carlos is saying something. Ironically, they did it artificially as opposed to how the Talaxu did it organically. Oh, pardon me. Right. So just the Leto and the Sisterhood there, I was wondering, was that a bit of foreshadowing of where the series is going? And that Leto, we're going to have Leto with the God Emperor, and then of course it's the Sisterhood's turn once we leave that behind. It's the Bene Gesserit books, as they're known of the Dune series, Right, folks. So I imagine this one will go quite. As I said, we'll see. Actually, not too sure. They're not very long chapters, and that's why we've thrown two of them together. We get some new info, some new words, etc. within this chapter, and again we're jumping back and forth between, I suppose, where Ghanima is, where Leto is, this kind of movement here, and we're going to get a wee bit of an update on, I suppose, on the situation and the action, the tension, all of it moving forward, driving forward, and going quite quickly, I think. So this is Ghanima, and she's an alias keep on the roof garden on our time's dusk. The bare brown rocks of the shield wall loomed in the distance, visible to Ghanima as the embodiment of that apparition which threatened her future. She stood at the edge of the roof garden atop the keep. the setting sun at her back. The sun held a deep orange glow from intervening dust clouds, a colour as rich as the rim of a worm's mouth. She sighed, thinking, Alia, Alia, is your fate to be my fate? Pardon me, there's a wee bit of an update there on the anatomy of a worm. I think previously did we get that they're grey, that their bodies are grey, and here we get that their mouths, the rim of a worm's mouth, is orange, I suppose. The sun held a deep orange glow, colour as rich as the rim of a worm's mouth. So, the inner lives had grown increasingly clamorous of late. There was something about female conditioning in a Fremen society. Perhaps it was a real sexual difference, but whatever, the female was more susceptible to that inner tide. Her grandmother had warned about it as they schemed, drawing on the accumulated wisdom of the Bene Gesserit, but awakening that wisdom's threats within Ghanima. So it's an interesting little statement. I think we've had something like this before, actually. I seem to recall way back somewhere, I think probably in Dune, that the female is more susceptible to problems with the inner tide, the multitude, the other memory. And I think, isn't it? And I believe that this is also a Bene Gesserit opinion. Her grandmother had warned her about it. This game, they are accumulated wisdom of the Bene Gesserit, so they've been chatting. But this has also awakened the wisdom's threats within Ghanima. So we get a flashback here. And this is Jessica. So abomination, Lady Jessica had said, our term for the preborn has a long history of bitter experiences behind it. The way of it seems to be that the inner lives divide. They split into the benign and malignant. The benign remain tractable, useful. The malignant appear to unite in one powerful psyche, trying to take over the living flesh and its consciousness. The process is known to take considerable time, but its signs are well known. In my copy of the book, I have its signs are well known, and it should be its signs are well known. So there we go. We're getting a bit more insight into what the Bene Gesserit consider abomination, how the process works. So the suggestion here is that all of the personalities in the multitude, pardon me, split into good and bad, pretty much. Benign and malignant is how we're told. The benign, the good guys are all, hey, we can help you, and are still tractable and useful. The bad guys seem to unite under one powerful psyche. What the toughest, baddest, probably individual there. The Baron, Harkonnen in Alia's case. And I suppose we're giving an explanation here that it can take years, which kind of allows us to kind of backward fit that to Alia's character, if you like. Why did you abandon Alia? Ghanima asked. I fled in terror of what I'd created, Jessica said, her voice low. I gave up, and my burden now is that perhaps I gave up too soon. So there's an admission there from Jessica, I suppose. Why did you abandon Alia? Why did you leave? Terror of what I'd created. And I suppose we have to consider terror as something that goes existentially beyond fear, I think, don't we? What do you mean? This is Ghanima. I'm Jessica now. I cannot explain yet, but maybe no. I'll not give you false hopes. Ghafla, the abominable distraction, has a long history in human mythology. It was called many things, but chiefly it was called possession. That's what it seems to be. You lose your way in the malignancy, and it takes possession of you. So ghafla here, I believe, is an Arabic word which means heedlessness or forgetfulness or carelessness. It's also a term in Islam, which is the sin of forgetting God and one's divine origins. Or it can be also apparently indifference to the same, being indifferent to God or one's origin, divine origins. So that's gafla. Not give you false hopes. The abominable distraction, forgetfulness, heedlessness, carelessness, I think, has a long history. There's a wee bit of that. If we look previously, the language of Jessica here, we had just prior to this, our term for the preborn has a long history of bitter. Yeah, there we go. And then the abominable distraction has a long history. It's just interesting, the language. So we're told that abomination is being possessed, basically, by a malignant personality. Oh, goodness, I better catch up with your comments there, folks. Right, hang on. Let's have them. Oh, right, it's not too. Let's see. Something I said that artificial as opposed to how the Talaxi did it organically. Carla said alternate routes to the same destination. There's Julian saying, "Hi all, forgive my infrequent appearances. Super busy lately." No worries, Julian. Totally understand. Always grateful for anybody to turn up, quite frankly. Hope you're feeling better, sir. Pardon me, I was saying we caught a bit of a cold here ourselves. So they're saying, where did that go? Moved. Yes, Carlos, yes, different schools of thought. I wish that Frank Herbert had written more about these civilizations. Yeah. Sean Wyland says that Samuel Butler book is very similar to what Uncle Ted was concerned with. Pardon me. Uncle Ted. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Oh, right. Hang on. Where's that? Uncle Ted? No, I'm lost. What's that? Is that is that a comedian? Sorry, you'll have to educate me there. Where are we? Sean. Samuel Butler book is very similar to what Uncle Ted was concerned with. Yeah, well, it's a great book. I quite enjoy it. I'm guessing that's the sort of, the problems with technology. It's everyone's a kind of pastoral utopia that kind of focuses on evolution and runs it by the machine problem, pretty much. I find it a really good book. I've read it 2 or 3 times. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's a really important book in relation to Frank and Dune, though. Chai is saying X's genetic experimentation is millennia away. I think they're more into gadgets and warfare weapons, though Hawaii was created as a weapon. And Sean saying Paul, oh right, sorry, got you. Sean Wyland saying Paul Sears, the weather is life. I'm a bit behind the live broadcast. No worries, Sean. As I have to backtrack with the conversation as well. In present day science, we're finding that the Weissman barrier is more permeable than previously believed. Environmental stressors can activate and deactivate introns to our suppressed parts of our DNA. Julian saying, I may have said this already, but possession is genuinely icky when you really think about it. Where does that consciousness come from? Where is the root? Abomination rather than possession. Chaya was saying, wasn't the Gafla the unbidden memory? It was defined in June. Oh, here, have I got something else for that then? Gafla, as giving oneself up to gadfly distractions, thus a changeable person, one not to be trusted. It's been used a number of times. Gafla, and the unbidden memory, the abominable distraction. Heedlessness for. Quite, yeah, I believe so. Shia, that rings lots of bells. Am I getting a case of Dune drift? I've probably looked it up again here and got an alternative meaning or something. The unbidden memory is defined in Dune as giving oneself up to gadfly distractions, thus a changeable person, one not to be trusted. It's been used a number of times. Heedlessness, forgetfulness, carelessness. I thought I got the gist of what Jessica's saying here. is that whatever she's trying to say, if she explains it to Jessica, it will give her false hope. So better, it'd be too much of a distraction. I'll not give you false hopes. Gafla, the unbidden memory, quite possibly. Yeah, I'll check that for it. Thank you very much. There's the unbidden memory again. I mean, I'll have to go look it up. Oh, I mean, by the way, I know Bojack's out there. Somebody sent me. I've got a few messages to the station in relation to more kind of textual issues with the book. So just to say, I've got those messages. Thank you very much. And I'll be adding and checking the text, but that's catch-up work for me at the minute as well. But I'm on it, and thanks very much. And keep any wee things like that coming, folks. If you notice anything that's different in your copy of the book in a particular chapter or anything like that, let us know. Pardon me, but thank you, Chaya. So it's possession. Terror is what it's interesting, I think, when we think about what sent Lady Jessica away here. Terror is the word here, and especially when we think about fear within the Dune series and the whole fear is the mind killer of this thing. We're getting an honest admission here from Jessica. I fled in terror of what I'd created. It's kind of a it's kind of a Frankenstein and his monster moment, isn't it, in a sense? What I'd created. And I'll be honest with you folks, by the way, I'm really starting to have a good think about Jessica's overall role in these three books. Pardon me. I'm trying to reevaluate it in a funny way, if you see what I mean. And I'm not going to present any kind of conclusions about it until we get to the end of this book. But whenever we do, it's something I'm going to have a wee chat about, I think. But I'm paying attention to Jessica at the minute. I'm reevaluating her, I think, in my own head. Pardon me. I gave up on my burden now is that perhaps I gave up too soon. What do you mean? Can't explain yet. But we get this thing from possession, a long history in human mythology. Yeah, and as Julian says, it is a pretty freaky thing. I think the idea of some other thing possessing your body, that kind of thing, is a bit weird, isn't it? Oh, tell you what though, Julian, I may have said this already, but possession is genuinely icky. This is your comment here. When you really think about it, where does that consciousness come from? Where is the root? Well, there's an answer to that in Erewhon. Is that they're kind of, the Arowonians, when they give birth to one of their children, their child is going to be a host to an alien being that's incorporeal. That's what the Arowonians are. And there's a whole thing on this in Erewhon called what is it? What do you call it? Birth? Is it birth contracts? I think is the chapter in Erewhon. It discusses how it's obviously a satire on family life in Victorian Britain, very much so. But basically, how new Erewhonians are born, who are they, and where do they come from? That's the answer to that in that story. They're aliens. And again, old Samuel Butler's writing this stuff in it's published in 1872. He's writing before that, I suppose. But yeah, that's the answer to that question. If you want to go with it with Erewhon, abomination rather than possession. So it seems here that as far as we're concerned, that there's synonyms with the Bene Gesserit. Abomination is someone who's possessed. Right. Now, where are we? So this is Ghanima here. Leto feared the spice, Ghanima said, finding that she could talk about him quietly. The terrible price demanded of them. And wisely, Jessica had said, she would say no more. So that's kind of the end of that flashback there. Fearing of the spice. Of course, we know what's going on with Leto at the minute. But Ghanima had risked an exploration of her inner memories, peering past an odd blurred veil and futilely expanding on the Bene Gesserit fears. To explain what had befallen Alia did not ease it one bit. The Bene Gesserit accumulation of experience had pointed to a possible way out of the trap. Though, and then, Ghanima ventured the inner sharing. She first called upon the Mohalata, a partnership of the benign, which might protect her. I thought that was a bit of an unwieldy sentence, but we got there. I'll just read that again. The Bene Gesserit accumulation of experience had pointed to a possible way out of the trap, though, and then Ghanima ventured the inner sharing. She first called upon the Molata, a partnership of the benign, which might protect her. She recalled that sharing as she stood. She recalled that sharing as she stood in the sunset glow at the edge of the keep's roof garden. Immediately, she felt the memory presence of her mother, Chani, stood there. I'll read that again. Immediately, she felt the memory presence of her mother. Full stop. Chani stood there, an apparition between Ghanima and the distant cliffs. Enter here and you will eat the fruit of the Zakuum, the food of hell, Chani said. Bar this door, my daughter. It is your only safety. The inner clamor lifted itself around the vision, and Ghanima fled, sinking her consciousness into her sisterhood's credo. So that was the sisterhood's credo, reacting out of desperation more than trust. Quickly, she recited the credo, moving her lips, letting her voice rise to a whisper. So we're going to get the Bene Gesserit Credo here, folks. Now, first of all, we had a couple of words there. We have Mohalata. Let's see. Then Ghanima ventured the inner sharing. She first called upon the Mohalata, a partnership of the benign, which might protect her. So Mohalata from classical Persian, from the word mulat and Arabic mula, is a delay, an extension, an extra period of time granted to achieve a deadline. Then we had the warning from Chani that follows. Enter here and you will eat the fruit of the Zakuum, the food of hell. Bar this door, my daughter, it is your only safety. Zakuum in Islam is a cursed tree rooted at the center of hell. It's a loan word from apparently from outside of Arabic, and its possible meaning I have here is bitter. From outside of Arabic produces apparently the tree itself produces bitter fruits for the damned in hell. So if you want a slightly different spelling, if you want to look it up, it's the Zakuum tree on Wikipedia. In fact, let me just grab that for you. There's the. Let's see. Just have a look at it. So it's a cursed tree that's rooted in the center of hell. It's referred to in the Quran on 5 occasions. Let me just plug that in for you if anybody's interested. I like mythological trees; they're quite cool. Generally, is referred to in the Quran on 5 occasions: 1760, 37, 62 to 68, 44, 43, 56, and 52. Latter three referring to it by name. There it is described as producing fruits tortuously fed to those condemned in hell as they burn the stomachs of the damned. Afterwards, those in hell are fed boiling liquids in a frenzy. It says in Islamic exegesis and modern scholarship, the Zakum tree has also been related to Surat al-Masad, which cryptically describes a figure whose title is Abu Lahab. Did I scribble any of this down? I thought I did. I knew I had a look at that. What was that? Oh yeah, I did briefly. So yeah, if you have a wee look at that there, that's quite interesting. It's reasonably, and there's some references, etc., etc. Yeah, interesting. Trees. So that's those couple of words. Now here we have the Bene Gesserit Credo of all things. Let me just, before we read it, I'll just catch up with your comments, folks. Jessica thinks she's playing a major role in all the politics and games, but she's usually being used by one side or the other. She's not as independent a player as she thinks. Interesting phrase, an explosion of her inner memories. How did Ghanima do this? Spice trance? Was she alone or with Jessica? I hadn't noticed this detail in earlier readings. I thought that this is, where are we? Few tellings. Let's see. If I catch that. Oh. Could you give me the start of what paragraph that begins at, please, Cynthia? The explosion of her inner memories, or how do you get it? Yeah, where's that? Just so I find it again. But Ghanima had risked an explosion. Got it. Thank you very much. Sorry, explosion. Did I say explosion? Hang on, that's probably me. I'll tell you what. I had to get order new purple highlighters, and they're a bit darker than I'm used to. But I think it doesn't say. Yours has explosion. Let me just double check. I have exploration. Where are we? 7. Yeah, exploration. Ghanima had risked an exploration of her inner memories. Yeah. Do you have explosion? Explosion of her memories. That I'm wondering if that's. Have you got that, or was that me making a bad mistake? So if it was, I'm really sorry. I have exploration. Your text says explosion. Right. That's interesting. Okay. Let me see. Let me mark that in the book. Your text is probably right, Cynthia. That's where I'm thinking. Exploration. I don't know. An exploration of our inner memories. Number 7. There we go. Yeah, I have an exploration. You've got explosion. Question mark. Thank you. That's an interesting one. Try and say an explosion in mine. Right. I've got exploration. Bear with me a second. Hang on. Before I go wandering, let's figure out where I should be going wandering to. Which one was the big tech? There, right. Tell you what. Oh no. No. Don't have a copy of that. Let's see. What have we got? How do I get these? Let's grab you. Right. What else have we got? Let's grab you. That's 2 more different ones. Oh, grab you. Right, okay. I've got 4 different ones. Okay. In fact, I'll tell you what, folks. I'll be right back. I'm going to investigate this in a second, but I'm actually going to need to run to the loo, so I'll be right back. We'll investigate. Dear. Oops. Whoops, daisy. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Let's have a wee nosy here. Shouldn't be too hard to find. Just to see if we can have a wee check here, but yeah. Oh, excuse me, I've got doggies barking, folks. No, that's an awkward one. I can't wait to find. Hang on, let me see. Holly, behave, love. Bear with me a second, folks, just to see if we can find this one. I'll go with this one, just we'll not go nuts over this. That's the next. There we go. That should be it. Right. I've got exploration in this one as well. That's the what's that? What are these ones? Is that New English Library? Yes, there's exploration in it. I got one more. Let's see if we can find this quickly. There we go. Have it for you in a second. Let's just try this one. And exploration as well. So I've got 3 for 3 explorations. Couldn't find it in this one. Let me see. I might be better at finding it there now. Yep. I just sort of hide this one. I think just puts the epigraphs in anywhere. There we go. Right. Hang on. And this exploration. So it's 4 for 4. I have exploration, and a few of you guys have got explosion. Chasm in Hebrew is unfold or wrap. The M at the beginning of conjugation can change the word from a verb form to a noun form. Yes, my text says explosion. Explosion in mine too, Chaya. Thank you. Halit. Where are we? Paragraph. Hang on a second, folks. Bear with me. I might have missed a couple of comments, but apologies if I have. Let me just backtrack a wee bit. An explosion of her inner memories. How did Ghanima do this? Spice trance was she alone? Or with Jessica? I hadn't noticed this detail in earlier readings. It's something, of course, we've got exploration of her inner memories. Carlos was saying there, I've said before, I think I missed your comment, Carlos, I said before, other memories shouldn't extend past the moment of conception. So logically, the possessing entity would be younger and more aggressive and impetuous. So the same paragraph starts with but Ghanima risked an explosion. Halit in Hebrew is unfold or wrap. The M at the beginning of the conjugation. Right. This is in relation to Mohalata. Sorry, is that it? Halita. Mohalita. The M at the beginning conjugation can change the word from a verb form to a noun form. Thank you. I shall get that scribbled in. Bear with me. I have to get. I haven't got my eyes tested, but I haven't handed them over my glasses yet. I need to get some new glasses. We've got to do that. Hang on, that's better. There we go. Hang on. Fold. Beginning of conjugation can change the word from a verb to a noun. Oh, all right, that's interesting. Noun. Thank you very much, Chaya. Yes, my text has exploded. Okay, yeah. What do you think, guys? Do you prefer explosion or do you prefer exploration? The risk and exploration of her inner memories peering past and all that makes perfect sense to me. The risk of them exploding, out all, basically surrounding and engulfing her, and bringing her under their control, that makes sense too. But I'm wondering what you think. I actually think exploration sounds better, to be honest with you. But because of the nature of these texts, I would consider probably that explosion is correct. I take it again. We're talking Berkeley texts, etc. Julian said Jessica is among the best intellectuals of her time. She and Paul were able to put Bene Gesserit theory into practice. Their sisterhood cited her words for generations. I think it's less that she was used, more that she was too good at what she did. I don't know. I think it's as much as the way that the Bene Gesserit consider everybody to be, it's a common thinking, isn't it, within the Dune universe that people are tools to be used. It's a tool with Lady Jessica is ultimately a tool that's got a mind of her own, I think. I don't know. I often get that she has her own sense of a place in history. As I said, Julian, I'm having a bit of a think about her at the minute. Especially in relation to this book, particularly her plan. And I suppose, what is going on, because she's not stupid, that's for sure. And again, is probably well aware that the Bene Gesserit are using her, if you see what I mean. I tend to maybe find that any presentation of Jessica where she's not getting things quite right is often, I'm being barked at here. I don't know how we put it. It's usually kind of something emotional in relation to the family. Does that make sense? But if she's maybe not seeing something right, but generally she's very, very sharp and in control, and politically active, I would say, up until June Messiah. Holy love. Excuse me a wee second, folks. I do apologize. Do you need out, big love? Sorry about that, folks. The ladies out in the backyard will probably hear them barking in a minute. I'll have to go bring them. Apologies, my wife's snoozing. I think let me catch up with you again. Sorry, and we'll get on with the Bene Gesserit Credo, which I like. Hang on, let's see. Explosion, man. So Julian was saying, I think it's less that she was used, more than she was too good at what she did. She's exceptional, isn't she? And again, in a universe of exceptional people. Jenna is saying it's after midnight here. Happy Independence Day to all the Americans. Stay safe. I got 22:59 here, but I suppose it's midnight there already, isn't it? Oh, here, going back. Where are we back? 5 hours. But it'll be, yes, I will say for tomorrow anyway, folks. Happy Independence, isn't it? Independence Day, good old 4th of July to everybody in America. Hope you have a nice holiday. Let's see. Colin said, ironic words considering the recent additions of the Trump regime. Stay safe. So they said, given the possible consequences, it may have felt more violent to Ghanima, even if the word exploration is reasonable, detached description. Yeah, may have felt more violent to Ghanima, even if the word exploration is reasonable, detached. Yeah, I think both. Well, I think explosion kind of makes more sense as well. Because, as I said, we're having. Oh yeah, we just had it there. The inner clamor. We get this warning: stay away from this. From Chani, a benign personality within her other memory, and then we get the inner clamor lifted itself around the vision, and Ghanima fled, sinking her consciousness into the sisterhood's credo, reacting out of desperation more than trust. Quickly, she recited the credo, moving her lips, letting her voice rise to a whisper. So this is kind of to save her here, and it's the explosion bit there makes sense if we think that all the personalities suddenly just try to swarm her there, and she flees from the vision. She's and into the Bene Gesserit Credo, and here we get to hear it for the first time, I suppose. So here is the Bene Gesserit Credo, folks. Religion is the emulation of the adult by the child. Religion is the insistment of past beliefs. Mythology, which is guesswork, the hidden assumptions of trust in the universe, those pronouncements which men have made in search of personal power, all of it mingled with shreds of enlightenment. And always the ultimate unspoken commandment is, thou shalt not question. But we question. We break that commandment as a matter of course. The work to which we have set ourselves is the liberating of the imagination, the harnessing of imagination to humankind's deepest sense of creativity. So that's the Bene Gesserit Credo. So, Credo is interesting. Word, just thought I'd bring it up to make sure I don't mess up the translation, but it literally means I believe. So this is what the Bene Gesserit believe, if you like. Credo, for anybody who isn't aware, I believe, is also the resistance organization that's led by Nemesis the Warlock against Termite, the aliens against the humans, and the Nemesis the Warlock stories. Credo is something that Nemesis would say a fair bit now and then, But that's I believe that's the name of his organization, isn't it? So religion is the emulation of the adult by the child. Religion is the insistment of past beliefs. Mythology, which is guesswork, I don't agree with that. The hidden assumptions of trust in the universe, those pronouncements which men have made in search of personal power, all of it mingled with shreds of enlightenment. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, isn't it? And whatever the ultimate unspoken commandment is, don't question this. Thou shalt not question. Do not doubt, this kind of thing. And so the beliefs are in contrary to that statement. This is the Bene Gesserit Credo, but we question. We break that commandment as a matter of course. The work to which we have set ourselves is the liberating of the imagination, the freeing of the mind, if you like, the harnessing of imagination to humankind's deepest sense of creativity. So the suggestion is that, I suppose, that religion quells the imagination, in particular there, particularly through the ultimate unspoken commandment, thou shalt not question. Yeah. Anything and anyone on this earth that tells you not to ask questions about something, the first thing you should do is ask a question and go, why do you not want me to ask questions? Why do you not want me to do that? What's your problem? And I think it's one of those things that if it appears in a religion, to me, it's a real problem. It's an immediate indicator of a human hand, shall we say, and a human mind at work, very much. So there we go. That's the Bene Gesserit Credo. We've had the litany against fear, but this is, we have to assume this is their core beliefs, really. They're kind of giving you the ingredients of what Frank, I think, sees as religion. Different things, mythologies, personal power, past beliefs, etc. All of these things. Power. All of it mingled with shreds of enlightenment. Throw in the odd bit of wisdom in there. There you go. That's good enough. There we are. So, slowly a sense of order returned to Ghanima's thoughts. This has saved her. This is the result of delving into this Bene Gesserit Credo. She's kind of used it in a funny way, a bit like the litany against fear here, hasn't she? Slowly a sense of order returned to Ghanima's thoughts. She felt her body trembling, though, and knew how fragile was this peace she had attained, and that blurring veil remained in her mind. Leb Kamai, she said, heart of my enemy, you shall not be my heart. Now, Chai, I can get you to check this one for me. I believe this one is Hebrew, and it means Leb Kamai is the heart of my enemies. So the translation that follows is, I think, literal there. It's also a kind of nickname for, let me see, what have I got here? It's the Hebrew word. It's also kind of nickname for chasm, the Chaldeans or the Babylonians, for example. I've got something here about the Atbash cipher. I wonder what I'm writing here. Hang on here, let me look that up. It's got something to do, yeah, something to do with Atbash is a monoalphabetic substitution cipher originally used to encrypt the Hebrew alphabet. It can be modified for use with any known writing system with a collating order. Yeah. There you go. That's interesting. You can have a real nosy at that. Let's see if we can find. There it is. In the Bible, it says here several biblical words are described by commentators as being examples of Atbash. The one that we're looking at here is Jeremiah 51:1. Behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against the inhabitants of Lev Kamai a destroying wind. In this case, Lev Kamai means the Chaldeans, who we chatted a bit about previously there. So it's a term used for the Chaldeans and also the Babylonians, I believe. There you go. Oh, there's Sheshach meaning Babylon there. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, Atbash, Atbash. Here, if anybody's into this kind of thing, here we go again. We'll just pop in the cipher there for you. There you go. Yeah, interesting word. The heart of my enemies, Leb Kamai. So in this case, where are we? The heart of my enemy, you shall not be my heart, she whispered. So Frank explains that one nicely for us. That was, didn't really need to go do that work, but there you go. So if anybody wants to check that out there, we put in the link for the Atbash cipher. That's interesting. We've the other major cipher, I suppose this word is considered an example of that. The main cipher that we've looked at within the Dune series is the Scitali cipher, isn't it? Or Skytail. And she called up a member, heavy brows and firm mouth. Thought, in hate I can resist Ali's fate, but the trembling fragility of her position remained, and all she could think about was how much Farad'n resembled his uncle, the late Sharam IV. We get a lot of this, by the way, within the Dune series, different generations of people resembling previous characters, etc. Let me just catch up with those comments. Let's see. I don't want them to tear off on me. So that was just, we were having a wee chat about explosion. Exploration. I think both make sense. Explosion also, I think, in relation, does make sense to me in relation to what happens to her there. As it's essentially she comes under attack, doesn't she? This is Chaya saying the Bene Gesserit didn't consider Jessica to be Reverend Mother material, just consort to the Duke. She wasn't meant to undergo the spice essence. The Fremen respect her more than the Bene Gesserit. Yeah, see, I don't know, Chad, could I add one word to your comment there and just would say publicly? Maybe. I don't know, especially with who her mother is. What the real consideration of her. But yeah, I think, as I suppose, I think you're correct, actually. We have to fundamentally consider her just part of the breeding program. Regardless of how good her genes are, that's how the Bene Gesserits see her. Is simply a breeding mother, really, isn't it? Which would consider you should consider that a great flaw, if you like, in the Bene Gesserit's thinking. As we point out, who was it pointed out that she's among the best? Gillian was saying among the best intellectuals of her time. She's, she's a military and political strategist, and her role within House Atreides as the House Secretary, if you like, is has her finger on the pulse of everything on Caladan. So I would see it as a flaw in the Bene Gesserit that if they didn't consider her Reverend Mother material, but it's perhaps what's happened to her over the years that's maybe changed her. Chai is saying, Carlos, when the bombs are quiet, I ignore the news as much as possible. Not sure what he did or why. It's ironic. I haven't caught it either myself, Carlos. Whatever's going on. I've been trying to avoid the news myself these days. Trying to avoid all sorts of stuff these days, to be honest with you. My apologies, Carlos says this isn't the place for political debate. Forgive my outburst. Oh, don't be worried about it, Carlos. I'm not bothered at all about it. I've just no idea what's going on. So I can't comment, I take it President Trump is up to something or doing something. I don't know. So no, I'm a bit at a loss. I don't know. The only sort of kind of stuff that I catch with about Donald Trump these days is that he's having some kind of feud with Elon Musk or something. But I try not to pay attention to. But yeah, here it's a perfect place for a bit of a matter, Carlos. I've never had any problems with it at all. As I said, it's just context, mate. Oh, ladies behave. Sorry about that, folks. Julius saying, is this credo is for initiates, not the populace? The big Bene Gesserit don't like their populace questioning. The emphasis on creativity, imagination comes later with Shanna as artist. Credo, I would say this is probably at the core of Bene Gesserit beliefs, because who and what they are and what they do is that they are a school that's main sphere of influence is politics, but their pretense, what they hide as is religion. What they pretend to be is a religion, a religious order, and they're not. So what you're getting is, I suppose, their core beliefs here. But I get the sense that there's a very much a hierarchy within the Bene Gesserit. In some ways, it was almost as you almost kind of wanted to think in a certain ways in the Dune universe that almost all women were Bene Gesserit, but that's not the case at all. You know, I think any woman can become a sister of the Bene Gesserit, but so then we have Reverend Mothers and etc. etc. You know, Mothers Superiors. We have different, but there is rank there. You know. So I guess it's the first time that we've heard it, Julian. So I don't know. Initiate's not the populace. I don't think it's for the general population. No. I think this is a truth about the Bene Gesserit that only other Bene Gesserits know. Would you excuse me, folks? I'm going to have to bring my doggies in. Right, you two. Get down under here. Go. Go. You two. Move. Move. Go. Go. Get in there. Get in there. Shut up. Honest to goodness. Oh, covered in Bennett. Sorry about that, folks. I actually had slippers on the soaking out there. Absolutely soaking. Nibbles is stuck in. There's a corner there in the garden that she can get into places where we can't get at her. Apologies, but we're kind of between the fences of our fence and the neighbour's fence, and we hedgehogs get in. You know, the dogs kind of run back and forward, and they're just going nuts there. We got a wee bit of wildlife around here, you know. So apologies about that. I think the doggies are secured for the night, so we'll have no more doggy interruptions here at the doghouse for tonight. Sorry about that, folks. Now, let me see. Let's see. Where were we? Chaya saying Lev is heart. I'm out of breath. Thank you. And Kamai is those who rise up against me. How did I do? The heart of my enemies, the heart of those who rise up against me. I did okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, I got to get new glasses. Bear with me, folks. Kamai, that's it. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Or come up against me. I thought the credo was we exist only to serve. Jessica said it to Howard after Duncan got drunk. Is it credo that they use there? Or is it their motto? I'm wondering. Let's have a wee nosy. Right, where would we be? In there. There we go. Bear with me a second, folks. Let's have a look. It's an interesting word. Boom. Credo doesn't appear. The word credo doesn't appear in the word Dune. Sorry, in the book Dune. To serve, Jessica whispered, clinging to the Bene Gesserit motto. We exist only to serve. Quite correct, but not the same thing. Motto and credo. One's just one is what they actually hardcore believe, and the other are words for public distribution, aren't they? I think. But thank you for that. Yeah, it's their motto. We exist only to serve. This is as I said, this is the first time we've got their credo. This is their beliefs. What they actually really believe. That's kind of damning about, but it's quite damning about religion. And I suppose it's presenting a common trait. There's always the ultimate unspoken commandment is thou shalt not question. And this is the thing that they choose to ignore. That's what they do. So it's almost a questioning response to religion, I think, perhaps. No. Julian saying we, the readers, can have an intellectual or mystical heightening with the Bene Gesserit without having to be controlled by them. The same cannot be said for the populace or initiates. Yeah. And I suppose if you know what the Bene Gesserit do and what they get up to, then you kind of understand how they do that. And if you don't, then they must be witches. They must practice sorcery and magic, you know. Right. Here you are. And it's Irulan. Enter Irulan. It was Irulan coming up from Ghanima's right, striding along the parapet with movements reminiscent of a man. Turning, Ghanima thought, and she's Shaddam's daughter. It's an interesting comment, isn't it? Why will you persist in sneaking out alone? Irulan demanded, stopping in front of Ghanima and towering over her with a scowling face. So she's angry, not happy. Ghanima refrained from saying that she was not alone, that guards had seen her emerge onto the roof. Irulan's anger went to the fact that they were in the open here and that a distant weapon might find them. So it's a safety issue, really. You're not wearing a still suit, Ghanima said. Did you know that in the old days, someone caught outside the siege without a still suit was automatically killed? To waste water was to endanger the tribe. I've written harsh. Water? Water? Irulan snapped. I want to know why you endanger yourself this way. Come back inside. You make trouble for all. I think that was a bit of a veiled threat, actually, from Ghanima there about the still suits. I think one of the wee comments that I was going to make about Irulan within this chapter, and I think I've maybe scribbled it down later on, is that Irulan hasn't really adopted any of the Fremen beliefs. I think she hasn't become, or at least partly Fremen. It doesn't seem that the culture has had a huge impact on her. And based on this statement, I think that we'd all find that quite obvious. And I suppose there's another expression of that in her physicality later on. What danger is there now? Ghanima asked. Stilgar has purged the traitors. Alia's guards are everywhere. So, as usual, whenever somebody gets killed in Dune, we give them a little skull. There we go. Those would be the traitors, and we don't know how many of them there are. But they have been purged, and that's a euphemism for being killed. Purged. Irulan peered upwards at the darkening sky. Stars were already visible against the grey-blue backdrop. She returned her attention to Ghanima. I won't argue. I was sent to tell you we have word from Farad'n. He accepts, but for some reason he wishes to delay the ceremony. How long? We don't know yet. It's being negotiated, but Duncan is being sent home. And my grandmother? She chose to stay on Solissa for the time being. Who can blame her? Ghanima asked. That silly fight with Alia. Don't try to gull me, Irulan. That was no silly fight. I've heard the stories. Now, I wanted to have a look at something here. Because it's not a term I've heard before. Let me see. Yeah, there you go. Fair enough. I've just picked up a new word, folks. Gull, in this sense. We've got gulls all over the place here. Is to fool or deceive someone in this sense. There you go. That's not a word I was particularly familiar with. I've written meaning question mark. I never got time to look it up. Fool or deceive. So don't try and trick me with that, is what she's saying there. Excellent. Don't try to gull me. And then as a verb is to gull and a noun. So a gull is a person who is fooled or deceived. Origin late 16th century of unknown origin. That's interesting. I didn't know that meaning at all. There you go. Learn something new every day. Yeah, gull is to deceive, and a gull is someone who's being deceived. Interesting. New words. Excellent. So don't try to gull me, Irulan. That was no silly fight. I've heard the stories. The sisterhood's fears, she's cut off here by Ghanima, are real, Ghanima said. Well, you've delivered your message. Will you use this opportunity to have another try at dissuading me? I've given up. Pardon me. You should know better than to try lying to me, Ghanima said. So, in other words, no, she hasn't. She hasn't given up at all. She's tried to present everything that's happened between Jessica and Ali as a silly fight. Nothing, something minor. And again, don't try to gull me. Don't try to deceive me. You should know better than to try lying to me, Ghanima said. Very well. I'll keep trying to dissuade you. This course is madness. And Irulan wondered why she let Ghanima become so irritating. A Bene Gesserit didn't need to be irritated at anything. She said, I'm concerned by the extreme danger to you. You know that, Ghanny. Ghanny, you're Paul's daughter. How can you? And she's cut off again. And just to point out, she's using the nickname Gurney for Ghanima that Ghanima has told her not to use, that she doesn't like it. So she's persisting in that. So this is Ghanima. Because I'm his daughter, Ghanima said, we Atreides go back to Agamemnon, and we know what's in our blood. Never forget that, childless wife of my father. We Atreides have a bloody history, and we're not through with the blood. Distracted Irulan asked, now I wonder, could you check this for me? It should be, of course, who's Agamemnon, but it's possible that she's repeating the name incorrectly here. I've got Agamemnon, and we're missing an A, so I've just written down it's a little mistake. And of course, just to throw that in there, we know by now, I'm sure you all know, are well educated on who the Atreides are in Greek mythology. I find it interesting that she says that we go back to Agamemnon, but if you go back to Agamemnon, then they go back to Atreides as well. And if they go back to Atreides, they would go back to Pelops, wouldn't they? And ultimately, their ultimate ancestor would be Tantalus. If the Atreides of this universe, and we're told that that's who they are descendants of the Pelopids. My understanding is that Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's story, one of their stories, alters that completely. Is my understanding of it. But to me, this is canon as far as I'm concerned. And I actually don't consider Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's books to be canon at all, because of the deviations, and I think what it brings to the books. I think it detracts from the story a lot. Back to Agamemnon. Yeah, I wonder, has Agamemnon both times in mind? Thank you very much, Chaya and Cynthia. My text has who's Agamemnon. Yeah, it's just another mistake in my book. We've got a missing A there. It's a bad one to have when you've got the same word just a few lines beforehand, you know. So you know, there is a wee bit of dramatic irony with the Atreides thing here. And I think we'll get a bit more of it. But we go back to Agamemnon, we know what's in our blood. It's family upon family slaughter, familial homicide. Never forget that. Childless wife of my father. We Atreides have a bloody history and we're not through with the blood. Who's Agamemnon? How sparse your vaunted Bene Gesserit education proves itself, Ghanima said. I keep forgetting that you foreshorten history, but my memories go back to... She broke off. Best not to arouse those shades from their fragile sleep. Now, that's an interesting thing. I keep forgetting that you foreshorten history. Irulan is our historian, pretty much our main historian of Dune, isn't she? Of the first Dune novel. So this is a bit of a comment on Irulan as a historian. We've been told, we know that Irulan's had literary ambitions. We've been told that before, etc., etc. This is kind of where she's going, but it's a bit of a criticism here, and I think it's meant to be a bit of a vibe. But it's an interesting comment that she foreshortens history. As I said, I've written down this as a comment on Irulan as a historian. What is she a historian of? She is a historian of Muad'Dib, of Paul Atreides, and his time as emperor, if you like, and the years leading up to him becoming emperor. She's the main historian of the first Dune novel. So they say, we didn't discuss Ghanima's decision. Hate will make me strong. This could either be her Fremen background, or as we see now, her roots to Agamemnon. Either way, it sounds like a bad decision. Yes, that's a good point. We didn't discuss it, Cynthia. It's that again. It's part of how would we put it? It's not a good thing to have, is it? Hate. Hate will make me strong, and hate I can resist. Alia's fate. You know, but the trembling fragility of her position remained, and all she could think about was how much for Adam. You know, I think there's doubt in that there, just with what follows. But the other thing, Cynthia, is, well, I'm happy. Yeah, if you've got any ideas on, I think it's also part of her the whole self-delusion thing, if you like. That in a funny way, her mind, I suppose, would if she believes all that's happened, that her mind would be dominated by grief and, you know, negative things, anger, and ultimately hatred. Why wouldn't it be perfectly natural? You know. But yeah, it's not a good thing. Roots back to Agamemnon, yeah, and all of those guys. You know, the awareness of that family. Yeah, they're a funny bunch, aren't they? Chaz said, I agree. Bad decision. Alia's hate and fear made her susceptible. Jessica all but admits love could have prevented Alia's submission. Excellent stuff, ladies. Thank you very much. Yeah. And yeah, hate's never what is it? Parts of your brain shut down, don't they, whenever you're running the full anger hatred thing. I tend to think hatred is a bit of a step up, if you know what I mean. And then anger, hatred, then you can shift up from there to things like wrath, and then all the way up to existential wrath. I thought you can always take things further, I think. But yeah, hatred's not a positive trait. And for our hero Ghanima here. Not a thing that is likely to help her. But we have a little bit of advice at the same time coming in from her mother. You know, and you know the questioning before it, is your fate to be my fate? You know, this kind of thing. The desire to kind of not avoid this, you know. But yeah, hatred, not a good thing. And I get the sense that she's steeling herself for something in this chapter. What you know, the thing about the still suits, the comment, to Ghanima, the old days you'd have been killed, basically, is what she said for walking out here without a still suit. Not a nice thing to say when someone walks in to say hello. You know, she's getting a bit miffed with Irulan attempting to deceive her. You know, yeah, and it's kind of steered towards it is. It's all steered towards violence and murder and stuff. But there's nothing positive about it. As you say, it probably isn't going to go well. You know. Bad decision. Hate and fear made her susceptible. Jessica all but admits love could have prevented Alia's submission. And I always got that as well. That the thing that was that is, especially when Ali is born, isn't it? Or is pre-born, isn't it? This kind of in order to stop the fetus from being, isn't it, terrified, or something? She sent a kind of overwhelming sense of love and nurturing over the child. I think going all the way back to the initial kind of pre-born thing. But as Cynthia said, either her Fremen background or, as we see now, her roots to Agamemnon. Either way, it sounds like a bad decision. Yes, Agamemnon's not. Well, if we know Agamemnon's character as well, he's not known for making brilliant decisions. You know, the theme of the Iliad is the wrath of Achilles, who is having a huff basically because Agamemnon has taken away a prize that Achilles has won rightfully. It is this priestess, Briseis. And so Agamemnon treats him with great disrespect, which results in Achilles withdrawing from the war and his myrmidons, you know. Yeah, Agamemnon's not not the brightest, you know, but I mean, he is a Greek hero in many, many ways, but his decisions are often arrogant, and yeah, the whole family thing. You know, Agamemnon and Menelaus, though they're not as bad. You know, if it's their Atreus, it's their father and his brother that really kind of just go nutty at it. If you see what I mean, Agamemnon and Menelaus kind of work together, which is kind of the opposite of their father and his brother. You know, it's Atreus who feeds Thyestes his kids, and then, you know, plays with the hands and feet and the extremities and stuff. He's a bit of a sick puppy, as Agamemnon, to be honest. Or sorry, Atreus. You know, Agamemnon's not you know. Yeah, he's not a nice guy, Agamemnon, at all. You know, he murders his own daughter so he can have a war, and that's ultimately the reasons why he's murdered by his wife when he gets home. Iphigenia, you know. So just to always point out, the Atreides are the Greek family from Greek mythology and history. Agamemnon was a real person, by the way. Let's see, where do we get to? Who's Agamemnon? How sparse your vaunted, did we get any further than that? How sparse your vaunted Bene Gesserit education proves itself, Ghanima said. I keep forgetting that you foreshorten history, but my memories go back to it. She broke off, but best not to arise those shades from their fragile sleep. Shade is a term, by the way, from Greek mythology, and particularly from the Iliad. Notice if someone gets killed, their shade goes down to Hades. So whenever we have people enter the underworld, heroes that enter the underworld, they often encounter the shades of other heroes or their parents or this kind of thing. So shades in particular is a kind of idea from Greek mythology. And certainly Agamemnon would have a shade, if you see what I mean. And a whole bunch of others. Whatever you remember, Irulan said, you must know how dangerous this course is to... Again, she's cut off. I'll kill him, Ghanima said. He owes me a life. And I'll prevent it if I can. I've written down that's a bit overt of her for someone who's used to scheming in the imperial court. And here's the response, actually, and probably why. We already know this. You won't get the opportunity. Alia is sending you south to one of the new towns until after it's done. I've written actually that would be awkward at the wedding, wouldn't it? Yeah, she'll send you south until after it's done, or perhaps that they mean post-wedding. But if Irulan wasn't at the wedding, and that she'd been sent somewhere, I would find that very strange, especially if I was Prince Ferran. Irulan shook her head in dismay. Ghanny, I took my oath that I'd guard you against any danger. I'll do it with my own life if necessary. If you think I'm going to languish in some black-walled Jeddah while you... She's cut off. There's always the Huan Hui, Ghanima said, speaking softly. We have the death still as an alternative. I'm sure you couldn't interfere from there. I've just written next to that is a murderous threat. So I've just written, go to the end of it. I've put these words at the end of here. Go to the end. So Jeddah, there's a city called Al-Jadida in Morocco. So Jeddah in that sense means the new in Arabic, from the word jadid, which meaning new, newly acquired, newly made, and now new town. So we've had the explanation of the word just before it. We're going to send you south to one of the new towns. I'm going to languish in some black-walled Jeddah while you... In other words, I'm going to languish in some black-walled new town. Hanoi, there, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is a Mari word, which means the highway, road, or path. Apparently, it's also a defensive posture. It's a kaka, perch, and snare, and it's also a locus in maths in that language. So in this sense, that's quite interesting. I love this, actually. This is I like this a lot. This is Frank being quite funny with language, I think, here. So basically, we're going to send you this town out of the way. And if you don't like that, Ghanima says there's always the Hani. So it's our way or the highway. There's always the highway, is what Ghanima says here, is basically what she means. Speaking softly. We have the death still as an alternative. I'm sure you couldn't interfere from there. So, in other words, if you don't go to the town, we're just going to kill you. And it's a very polite, linguistically obscure way of threatening someone. But the Huan we have the death still as an alternative. But the word means it's, the highway. And I'm wondering, is that a word that the Fremen call the death still? I don't think so, because they just tend to call it the death still, but it's an interesting use of a word, isn't it? And I like the way it translates. So I don't know, I found it quite funny. I don't know what you guys thought. So, down to the new town or the highway for you, the death still. It is a murderous threat. Again, Ghanima, I think, is generally feeling pretty murderous, scared a bit within this chapter, pondering certain things, but with the language is all sort of presenting murderous kind of things. But I'll kill him. It's straight out with it earlier. He owes me a life. Very much, I think, as we were saying, probably more the Fremen attitude than than the Agamemnon one, I think. Irulan paled, put a hand to her mouth, forgetting for a moment of all of her training. It was a measure of how much care she had invested in Ghanima. This almost complete abandonment of everything except animal fear. She spoke out of that shattering emotion, allowing it to tremble on her lips. Gani, I don't fear for myself. I'd throw myself into the worm's mouth for you. Yes, I'm what you call me, the childless wife of your father. But you're the child I never had. I beg you. And tears glistened at the corner of her eyes. Now, I've scribbled here that I think her language is a little bit hyperbolic. I think she's scared, and I also think it's possessive. I also think her tears are wasted here on Gani, as we giving tears to the dead, this kind of thing. This would be seen as a kind of waste of moisture, wouldn't it? But I'm not too sure how Gani. I think Gani takes it in a different way here, because I think that there is some sense of love, I think, between Ghanima and Leto and Irulan, if you see what I mean. So being a part of their life since they were born. Let me just catch up with your comments, folks, before I think we're getting out of hand here. Let's see. Carlos was saying, something I always felt there should have been more internal conflict between her Fremen and Imperial genetic legacies. Chaya, and this is Carlos again, Chaya, I agree, Jessica's absence left Alia vulnerable to the Baron's manipulation. Well, I mean, the thing, yes, and Alia sees it as abandonment, didn't she? She saw it as being abandoned. Jessica runs from her child because of not just the fear, the terror of what she's created. And it's interesting, I suppose that, but I think Paul's involved in her decision as well, isn't she? Isn't he? Sorry. It's not just Alia that Jessica created, and as I said, she fled from Paul's court. So Paul is still about, I think it's possibly a fear of both her children that's driven her away. Let's see. But yes, left her vulnerable. Again, if Jessica was there, she could have helped, that's the thing, I think. It would have been the right person to help. So they said, as we learned in the last chapter, Leto jousts with his inner lives in a spatial way, separating them and then stepping beyond them. Ghanima's journeys inward are structured differently. Yes, and we've had it pointed out again within this chapter, and that's probably why it was specifically pointed out to us earlier, that the female conditioning, was it something about female conditioning in a Fremen society? Perhaps it was a real sexual difference. But whatever, the female was more susceptible to that inner tide. But her grandmother had warned about it as they schemed, drawing on the accumulated wisdom of the Bene Gesserit, but awakening that wisdom's threats within Ghanima. So it's almost as in a sense that because Jessica kind of warned her about it, that it kind of triggered the inner lives about it. Oh crap, she's been warned about it. It's this kind of sense. No, we're all right. So I still have plenty to catch up on. Cynthia was saying, Carlos agreed, Ghanima should have memories of powerful Fremen, and we mustn't forget that she's the granddaughter of late Count's another imperial legacy. Shade is Chaya saying, Shade in Hebrew is a demon. It's a word that is spelled Shindalet instead of pronounced, so as not to awaken any negative energies lingering about. Oops. Can Gani access both male and female ancestors? Yes, she can. Is it a preborn thing? Alia can too, but the Bene Gesserit can't. I believe so. We're told that it's an ancestral, though. It's not everybody. Does that make sense? And because of it, that the males were there. That we got an explanation for it because with Alia. Because, as I said, for a long time I went with the Baron was a manifestation of madness in her mind, because how could the male line be there? I missed that. We all chatted about it, I think, a wee while back, but it is there. He is there, so it's not that he isn't really there and she's hallucinating. He has possessed her, which makes her more tragic again to me, I think. If she'd gone mad and the Baron was a manifestation of that madness, I always thought was really tragic. But in this case, he's the dominant personality that the malignants have shoved forward to take over. I want to say we've got another version of the Baron on the go as well inside Leto at the minute. I put that away. Stop that out. Let me see. So to answer your question, Chaya, we've had that. It was always a bit of a mystery for me. The answer is yes. It is a preborn thing. It's possibly a Kwisatz Haderach thing as well, but it's not a Bene Gesserit. So the question is that Alia can do it. It's not about necessarily, for me, I think it's not necessarily that they're preborn, though they are. It's I believe they're Kwisatz Haderachs, and that's why. Ghanima and Leto are Kwisatz Haderachs, I think. And so is Alia, I believe, and all of them. I think we always get the same statement with Kwisatz Haderach. I think it's something similar, but they're always something more. Everybody, we're going to get that. I think, or if we haven't already got it, but they're always something more. They're not just what, and they're all different. And we've been talking about the evolution thing at the start of this tonight, where Frank is presenting some of Paul Bigelow Sears's ideas from Where There Is Life, page 110. Pardon me. That infinite variation, evolutions are a big thing within this. And ultimately, Ghanima is going to be a big part of a breeding program as well. We're going to catch this in a wee bit here, aren't we? Which, to me, the other thing is because the Bene Gesserit can't, the creation of the Kwisatz Haderach doesn't necessarily, you'd think they would do something that would allow them to access the male memory. Does that make sense? But again, we get this, I think it's a separation of male and female, genes, this kind of thing, mitochondrial DNA, that sort of thing. It would certainly give her memories of much longer lifespans. So that was China saying, can Gurney access both male and female ancestors? Is it a preborn thing? Alia can too, but Bene Gesserit can't. It would certainly give her memories much longer lifespans. Yeah, and other than Alia, and the Baron is there, and the Baron, is there anyone else who can see the male side except Paul? So yeah, as we were saying, China, yes, Alia can see it, Ghanima can see it, and Leto can see it, and Paul can see it. They can all see it. I'm pretty sure, and therefore they're Kwisatz Haderachs. I think every Kwisatz Haderach in the book is a different thing. Yeah, I'd go with it. Why not? See, something more than that. Paul's a Kwisatz Haderach. You thought I was a Kwisatz Haderach, but I'm not just that. I'm more. Paul isn't just a Kwisatz Haderach. He's something else as well. And Alia is the same set of genes. Just because she's female and she's born preborn, that's the difference between them. But I look at her as a Kwisatz Haderach. And going forward, I think within my original videos, I kind of had to pick and choose who I thought were, very briefly. I had to chop a lot of it out. But we'll go on. We have evolutions of Kwisatz Haderachs throughout the Dune series. The big one towards the end, I suppose, are the Miles Teg, I think, and possibly the latter Duncans. Got more than one Miles Teg, don't we? I just remember. But yeah, I think so. It's my own opinion. I don't know if you agree with me or not, Chaya. I believe so. What you're about to say there immediately after that, Ali's a Kwisatz Haderach question mark. She projected herself into the future to send Paul a message, but she was never capable of harnessing and selecting time strands of existence for history to follow. The thing is, if we go back to that bit, Chaya, she was really given a bit of a kind of awesome build up that she could do stuff beyond Paul. And that message was an example of it. As I said, it was a kind of a bit of it's something that Frank never really developed with the character. I think he lost it. But I got the sense way back that I think this is going back to the Dune book club a couple of years ago, that Ali was more powerful than Paul, that they worked in a different way. But as he kind of got addicted into the looking forward, she tended to look back into the other memory of the lives of people in the siege, this kind of thing, to try and find her place, But this is Ali as a little kid, 2-3 years of age, and again a very tragic character. But yeah, I believe that she's a Kwisatz Haderach. I believe that Ghanima is too, and I believe that Leto is as well. But all different. And I don't think we'll ever see any real. Again, we'll have a chat about the female characters in this, that how things are kind of left in Children of Dune. And it'll be interesting to look at the ending and compare it to, say, for example, the ending of the first Dune novel. But yeah, I think that she is one, Yeah, yes, I know. I thought Kwisatz Haderach, by definition, were male. A male Bene Gesserit was what they strove for. Yeah, I agree. I think we got a female one too. And I think in a funny way, but also that Alia was an attempt by Jessica to possibly give the Bene Gesserit what they wanted. If you see what I mean. But again, why wait all that time? Why wait till they were going to June? This kind of thing, I think the choice of conception, I think, is a conscious one by the Bene Gesserit. They choose to, I'll become pregnant at this point, So I don't know. I think it's really complicated with Jessica's reasons for having Alia, but somehow, if Paul's a Kwisatz Haderach, and the things that I don't know, I genuinely think so. But yes, quite right that she's not male. And again, we have that there's an awful lot of messing with the ideas of gender within the Dune series. So, but you're absolutely correct, Chaya. But they got a female one, But at the same time, if I don't know, it's just a kind of idea. I think. See what you think about it. I don't know. I think she exhibits the qualities of one, but she's gone mad. And is it possibly that the abomination is something that happens to them? But it's again with the Erewhon kind of thing. Alia's fate in this story is the fate of the first Erewhonians in Erewhon, the people that came before them, who are prescient. Their fate is, I think, Alia's fate is the same. Is also the same as the we've had a Thylaxu Kwisatz Haderach, and if we're going by what that is what kind of individual was it? The Thylaxu Kwisatz Haderach. The answer is most likely, what is it they're called? Oh goodness, some kind of hermaphrodite, aren't they? The face dancers, etc. There, I can't remember the term exactly. But they're neither I think they're neither kind of male nor female. I think it's something like a similar tribute to the Axolotl. Sorry, got a wee thing on my finger there. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, it's possible that if we think about it, the Thylaxu Kwisatz Haderach is not male. but it's prescient and it goes mad and kills itself, doesn't it? The first people in the Era One, the pre-Erewhonians, I think is how they're called. They're prescient. They're born prescient, and their entire race is extinct within 6 months because they all go mad. With the knowledge that their prescience gives them, it's not overtly stated that they committed suicide, but it's heavily implied. Is that the case? Actually, maybe they did blatantly kill themselves. I don't know, but that's the case. That's that bit from Erewhon, you know. So just running with that, I think we have. I think it's possible that we can have female Kwisatz Haderachs. What originally the Bene Gesserit thought they were getting is a male Bene Gesserit who can look into the male other memory. That's what they thought. Again, is what they planned for, isn't necessarily what they got. And again, if we think about Hasamir Fenring being a failed Kwisatz Haderach, because of being a genetic eunuch, again, that kind of thing. But he's something else altogether. And it seems within him as well, by the way, that the opportunity to not take genes from people and do things like artificial insemination is probably a major problem. It's a thing that causes the Bene Gesserit problems. I think I think their lives would be a lot easier if they did things like that. Jessica, do we know how old Alia was when she woke up in the spice ordeal? How long had Jessica been pregnant? Is Frank getting political? Life begins at near conception. I think that there is some etiological stuff by Frank in relation to the preborn, and I think we're told that they become conscious at 2 months. Was that right? It was. I think it's probably in this book, possibly in the last one. It's not in the original Dune story, but I got the sense that let's see, Jessica gets pregnant with Leto, I think, pretty much the night before they go to Arrakis. And the point where she becomes aware, I think, there's some kind of awareness from the fetus, pardon me, is at the point of drinking the water of life in Sietch Tabr. So that's the time frame between the day before going to Arrakis, I think, and probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6 months in, possibly. I don't know. I'd have to go back and do a wee bit of nosing just to work out the timeline. So how old was Alia when she woke up in the spice ordeal? I think 2 months. I think is the way it's presented. So still as a fetus, 2 months within, not particularly well developed, I suppose. But I think that's the bit where we're told in June that suddenly that it's with the water of life. That's the moment where that happens. That consciousness appears really, and Jessica has to do her best to soothe it, and give it motherly, send warmth and motherly love over these feelings. If I can remember correctly, is Frank getting political? I have no idea. In this sense, life begins at or near conception. Pardon me. Yeah, I suppose it might be useful to kind of have a wee think about the kind of timeline there. But at the same time, we have Jessica taking drugs while knowing that taking an incredibly potent drug while knowing that she's pregnant. I suppose it's interesting that there's consequences for that, because there should be, if that makes sense. But it makes me wonder why she did it, or why she didn't delay it. I think as I recall, when we go all the way back to June, once the Fremen kind of know that she was pregnant, the simple thing is all she had to do was say, "I'm pregnant. I will therefore can't take this. I will take it whenever I've had my baby." I'll happily do it then. But she doesn't admit to it. So her own hand is in Jessica's hand, and what happens to Ali is of huge importance. I think her decisions. Constant, I forget, was she aware of her pregnancy when she underwent the spice agony? Yes, she was. I think she was surprised to sense Ali's, but well, it's that causes the presence to be there. I think, but no, Paul's well aware that Paul tells her that he's well aware that she's pregnant with his sister in the still tent when they're escaping across the desert. Um, Yeah, got it. Sorry, presence within her. Yes, indeed. So yeah, she's well aware. Um, and again, to ask the question, does a Bene Gesserit know they're pregnant? They can choose whether to conceive or not. So the point is, it would have been a conscious decision. Um, because they have that level of control. There's no birth control required for a Bene Gesserit. They have that level of control over their own bodies. Something I often think that's kind of interesting is especially if we think about the contraceptive pill for women and when it turned up. Was it, I think right at the start of the 60s, isn't it? Really, and how much that changes the level of control that women have over their own bodies. Is incredible in terms of world history. It's a huge thing. And we've got the Bene Gesserit who could do it just like that. So no, she would be fundamentally aware of being pregnant from the point. I would say that it's her that allows conception to happen. Does that make sense? It would be a conscious decision by any Bene Gesserit um, to choose whether to allow an egg to be fertilized or not. So I think absolutely. Mm. All right, where are we? Let's see. So we had that bit with Irulan. I fear for myself. I'd die for you. All that kind of stuff. But and the tears. So Ghanima fought down a tightness in her throat and said, "There is another the tightness in the throat. I think is that real. There is real emotion here. Um, Feelings for Irulan in a way, I suppose. Um, there is another difference between us. You were never Fremen. I have nothing else. This is a chasm which divides us, Ali. Sorry, this is a chasm which divides us. Alia knows. Whatever else she may be, she knows this. I'm Fremen, you're not. Alia's Fremen, you're not. It's a huge difference. you know, I've scribbled next. This to be a Fremen is a I've scribbled as Fremen being a Fremen equal to a form of planetary nationalism here. If you see what I mean, Ghanima and Leto are Fremen because they're born on Arrakis. They have a Fremen parent, I suppose. Is Paul's not considered to be Fremen by Leto, for example? Though we would think of him as being a Fremen, becoming Fremen. Ghanima, I think, looks at it as if you're born on Arrakis, you're Fremen. That kind of thing. I don't know. But I've nothing else. Again, we talked about the imperial side of the character. Certainly the twins are more Fremen than they are citizens of the Imperium, I think, at this point in the book. You can't tell what Alia knows, Irulan said, speaking bitterly. If I didn't know her from Atreides, I'd swear she has set herself to destroy her own family. And I've just written next that, oh, the dramatic irony of that statement. So, of course, we all know that what the Atreides do is destroy their own family, pretty much. Um, and of course, we get this with Ghanima's thoughts here. How do you know she's still Atreides? Ghanima thought, wondering at this blindness in Irulan. This was a Bene Gesserit, and who knew better than they the history of abomination? She would not let herself even think about it, let alone believe it. Alia must have worked some witchery on this poor woman. I've written next to that, has she? And I've also written that's an interesting that we have a female character referring to another female character in terms of witchery here. The term witches and witchery, etc., tend to come from the male characters about the Bene Gesserit, don't they? But yeah, a little sense of how you know she's still Atreides as the Harkonnen. Alia must have worked some witchery on this poor woman. So there's sympathy. The poor woman suggests sympathy for Irulan here. And I wonder, and the question is, I suppose it's not a whimsical thought from Ghanima. Again, we can't think of Ghanima as a 9-year-old. This is a highly intelligent person with thousands of lifetimes of experience behind her. Alia must have worked some witchery on this poor woman. Isn't a statement I think that Alia's thinking would come up with lightly. So the question is, has Alia done a bit of witchery, a bit of imprinting? Would be the most likely explanation on Irulan. Ghanima said, "I owe you a water debt. For that, I'll guard your life. But your cousin's forfeit. Say no more of that." So we've kind of gone from careful, I might just kill you, pretty much, to I will protect you with, I'll protect your life no matter what. But your cousin's forfeit. Say no more of that. That's for Adam. Irulan stilled the trembling of her lips, wiped her eyes. "I did love your father," she whispered. "I didn't even know it until he was dead." "Perhaps he isn't dead," Ghanima said. "The preacher." "Ghanny, sometimes I don't understand you. Would Paul attack his own family?" Again, the irony of just the whole Atreides thing. Ghanima shrugged, looked out at the darkening sky. He might find amusement in such a... How can you speak so lightly of this? "To keep away the dark depths," Ghanima said. "I don't taunt you. The gods know I don't, but I'm not just my father's daughter. I'm every person who's contributed seed to the Atreides. You won't think of abomination, but I can't think of anything else. I'm the preborn. I know what's within me. And every person who's contributed seed to the Atreides, eggs as well, that's where I went with that. That foolish old superstition about don't." Ghanima reached a hand towards Irulan's mouth. "I'm every Bene Gesserit of their damnable breeding program, up to and including my grandmother. And I'm very much more." She tore at her left palm, drawing blood with a fingernail. "This is a young body, but its experiences. Oh gods, Irulan, first learn who I am." That's quite a heavy little paragraph, but essentially it tells us something very interesting, is that certainly within Ghanima and Leto, indeed, the entire breeding program, everybody in the breeding program of the Bene Gesserit that's up prior to her is an ancestor. So that's interesting. There's a whole string of Bene Gesserits there, all the way back to, we would have to assume, to the very beginning of the breeding program, Let me just catch up with your comments there, folks. But yeah, the other thing then is tearing at the left palm. There we go. We've got the hand of agency again. We've got blood on it. If you can remember, Paul's all the way back to Paul and the Gom Jabbar. Paul does not come out of the Gom Jabbar uninjured. It's his right hand that's in the box. But when he's going through the pain, he digs his fingernails into his left hand, and it's injured, and he has four marks within it, which I think is kind of important. I think we talked about it way back at the time. Goodness, we've got a bit of Dune drift going on here, haven't we, today? Let's see. So Chai was saying cultural legacy, not sure about planetary. City versus desert. Fremen tourists and outsiders live on Arrakis. The polar water magnet didn't consider himself Fremen or the bankers or others in Dune. No, that's quite correct, yes. Carlos said, you just blew my mind, Doc. I never considered the possibility of a face dancer Kwisatz Haderach. Yeah, Carlos, it's quite early on in Dune Messiah where the conspiracy is, yeah, they're having a bit of an natter about it with Sky, I think it's Skytail, isn't it? And he explains that, basically we get, and it's he explains it in a roundabout way, and someone says, "What do you mean?" And I think that's the bit where the Reverend Mother guy is Helmo Haim just goes, "He killed himself." That's the fate of the Kwisatz Haderach, of the Tleilaxu Kwisatz Haderach. The only interesting thing, I suppose, is we don't quite get a timeline for it. We're not sure. I kind of get the sense that they have their Kwisatz Haderach before the Bene Gesserit. But it's discussed as part of the conspiracy. I think when the whole conspiracy is together at the start of the book of Dune Messiah. Cultural legacy. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there, Chaya. It's not sure about planetary. City versus desert, Fremen, tourists, outsiders. Yeah, it's polar water. Yeah, I agree with it. It's her blood, really, isn't it? I think it's she's a Fremen through Chani, really more than anything, and has that entire lineage within her as well. I think way back we did a wee kind of. It was whenever we were having a look at that relationship. It's way back in one of the notebooks. We did a kind of little almost like a family tree of the twins, but it was trying to see where the different genes came in, the different lines, if you like, and we kind of figured out who are all the major contributors to the Kwisatz Haderach, particularly who are the major contributors to Leto and Ghanima down through the different groups, Okay, hang on a second. My text is, but I'm just my father's daughter. That seems odd. Your text is probably right here with I'm not just my father's daughter. Right, let's have a wee look. I think, try saying, I think you're missing a few sentences at the end of that paragraph. Mine matches Cynthia's. So Cynthia said, my text has it, but I'm just my father's daughter. Right, hang on, let's figure this out. Left palm. I'll just make a wee quick mark there. Yeah. Tell you what, give me a wee quick second. I'll just instinctively. Irulan bent and gathered Ghanima into her arms, holding her close, cheek against cheek. And Ghanima's thoughts here are, don't let me have to kill this woman, Ghanima thought. Don't let that happen. As this thought swept through her, the whole desert passed into night. And that's the end of our chapter there. Now let's jump back and have a wee look at that. I'm just my father's daughter, right? Let's see. Just bear with me till I find it. Is that where I'm at? Because I'm his daughter, Ghanima said we Atreides go back. Is that where we're at? Right, let's see. 26. Okay. Paragraph starts. I have three. Oh, right. Okay, here we go. Chelsea, my match is Cynthia's. I have three sentences between. Oh God, Irulan, my experience is no. And if you'd help me, Irulan, first learn who I am. Right. Paragraph starts with to keep away the dark depths. Bear with me a second, folks. Thank you very much. Yeah. Right. I don't know. Girls know I don't. Right. Let's see. Got it. Thank you very much. Let's see. Possibly might be my mistake. 39. To keep away the dark depths, Ghanima said. I don't taunt you. The gods know I don't. But I'm not just my father's daughter. I'm every person who's contributed seed to the Atreides. You won't think of abomination, but I can't think of anything else. I'm the preborn. I know what's within me. Is exactly what I've got here. Your text says, but I'm just my father's daughter. That seems odd. Your text. Yeah, I've got, I'm not just my father's daughter. I'm all of these things as well. That would make sense. Here's I have 3 sentences between, oh gods, Irulan. No, right, hang on. Right, let's see, where are we? Right, I'm preborn, I know what's within me. Then that foolish old superstition about. Okay, let's see. Right, I'm every Bene Gesserit of their damnable breeding program up to and including my grandmother, and I'm very much more. She tore her left palm, drawing blood with a fingernail. This is a young body, but its experiences. Oh gods, Irulan. Oh, yeah. That's my fault. I've missed out a bit, unfortunately. Right. Hang on. Let me see. Thank you very much. That's me that's done that. First, learn who I am. Where are we? What have I done then? What's Irulan? Okay. Yeah, I've seen what's happened here. I've messed out a bit of a paragraph here. I'll have to write this in at the end. Bear with me a second. Thank you very much. I've got it. It's my fault. I'm just going to write here. Rewrite paragraph 41. Okay, I'll just read that again, folks. Sorry about that. That's my fault entirely. I've missed a bit. Oh gods. So just run through this again. Thank you very much, folks. Yeah, that's okay, chat. I think that's there. Oh gods, Irulan, my experiences. No. And if you'd help me on, first learn who I am. Yeah, okay, I'll just run through that again. Thank you very much. That's my mistake. I've got that there. Don't Ghanima reach to the foolish old superstition about don't Ghanima reach the hand around, so a hand towards Irulan's mouth. I'm every Bene Gesserit of their damnable breeding program up to and including my grandmother. And I'm very much more. She tore her left palm, drawing blood with a fingernail. This is a young body, but its experiences. Oh gods, Irulan, my experiences. No. She put out her hand once more as Irulan moved closer. That's the bit where I missed there from there. I know all of those futures which my father explored. I have the wisdom of so many lifetimes and all the ignorance too. All the frailties. If you'd help me, Irulan, first learn who I am. Yeah. First, yeah, I've missed about 3 or 4 lines there. I'll have to scribble that in. Thank you very much. I'll do that later. I've made a wee big note there. Thanks, folks. That was my wee mistake. I just must have missed out there. Must have looked away and looked back. I feel like Ash counting his, his drops before he ends up, going into the future. That kind of 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, that kind of thing. I must have missed that wee bit. Thank you very much for spotting it, as always. So this is a fascinating claim by Ghanima. I know all of those futures which my father explored. Are these just Paul's memories or evidence that she has Kwisatz Haderach abilities and has explored those futures? Good question. I know all the futures which my father explored because she's got his memories because he's in her other memory. Are these just Paul's memories or evidence that she has Kwisatz Haderach abilities and has explored those futures? I'm not sure. Ganem is a bit of a mystery to me in some ways. Again, running with what we get at the start of Children of Dune, she seems to be the more powerful, arguably, possibly the smarter of the two, the deadlier of the two, perhaps, if that's a way to put it. Up until the point where they split, and they are acting out. She's taking on this role. They're both acting out a role within the plan, if you like, but it was dependent on which one of them was least injured, if you like, that went forward to Jack Urutu. So again, she's still acting in a role here that's been kind of put into through hypnosis, or certainly that's affecting her decisions anyway. And I thought it was very interesting that she left this mark on her hand here. This is a similar mark, similar place to Paul's hand after the Gom Jabbar, But that's a very good question. Is it evidence that she has Kwisatz Haderach abilities and has explored those futures? I don't know. That's the thing with Ghanima. I think Ghanima is going to remain a big mystery at the end of the book. And it's something I look forward to having a chat to you about. I suppose maybe whenever we move forward into God Emperor, it's a kind of question of how do you feel about losing, and it's a massive time jump, I suppose, but how do you feel about losing so many, great female characters? It's just one of those things, I think. In some cases, some things are just left hanging, Chaya saying Ghanima was almost overcome by her inner mother. She was maneuverable to the parent game, more vulnerable to the parent game they played. Yes, and I suppose it's interesting that why did they do? I suppose it was just the parent game. The female child takes the female parent, and the male child takes the male parent. There we go, folks. That's the end of that chapter. All sorts of interesting stuff there. This one isn't going quick, is it? Now, the next chapter is not quite as long. We've got chapter 45, and we'll pile straight into it. I'll get some fluids here. And I've called this one, I suppose we can have a wee bit of fun with this one. The Beefswelling of Leto II, or Leto Escapes. I didn't know this, but apparently the Beefswelling thing is a meme on the internet. And I saw a couple examples of it. I don't recall any of them, but have a look. So this is the chapter where Leto escapes, essentially. It's a brief chapter. Some of it's interesting. Again, we've got some stuff to have a wee look at. And I've forgotten to look something up. Darn it. And I'll tell you what, we'll deal with it when I get to it. I've left a blank space here. I thought I'd gotten everything this week. Bear with me a wee second. I might get lucky. Go on. I did get lucky. I'm going to go with that. Bear with me a wee second, folks, just when I write this down. Phew, that was close. Yeah. I got it. Right, that'll do. That'll save a wee bit of hassle later on. Right, I'll leave that there. Righty ho. Okay, dokie. Sorry about that. Okay. Starting off, there's our epigraph. One small bird has called thee from a Beak Street crimson. It cried once over Siege Tamar, and thou went forth unto funeral plain. I'll read that again. One small bird has called thee from a Beak Street crimson. It cried once over Siege Tamar, and thou went forth unto funeral plain. A lament for Leto II. Great stuff there. The Beak Street Crimson Blood, I think, is the suggestion there. It's an odd little one. I suppose it's possibly a little reference to the fact that everybody at this point believes that Leto is dead, except for those here involved with this plot, if you like. So this is a bit of a fun one, folks. I don't know what you think. We have some of Frank's interesting, how would we put it, sex writing. I suppose we'll deal with it when we get to it. Yes, indeed. Okay, Leto awoke to the tinkle of water rings in a woman's hair. He looked to the open doorway of his cell and saw Sabiha sitting there. In the half-immersed awareness of the spice, he saw her outlined by all that his vision revealed about her. She was 2 years past the age when most Fremen women were wed or at least betrothed. So from the previous chapter, I think we figured out that she was 17. If she's 2 years past the age for betrothal, then we could make the assumption that that age is 15 within Fremen society. So she was 2 years past the age when most Fremen women were wed or at least betrothed. Therefore, her family was saving her for something or someone. She was nubile, obviously. His vision-shrouded eyes saw her as a creature out of humankind's tyrannic past. Dark hair and pale skin, deep sockets which gave her blue eyes a greenish cast. She possessed a small nose and a wide mouth above a sharp chin, and she was a living signal to him that the Bene Gesserit plan was known or suspected here in Jacurutu. So they hoped to revive pharaonic imperialism through him, did they? Then what was their design to force him into marrying his sister? Surely Sabiha could not prevent that. So, interestingly enough, we have the heavily drugged Leto II here. The tinkle of water rings and Sabiha's hair. This is what's getting his attention. We get a little bit of description of her, and that she reminds him of something from mankind's tyrannic past. That's the Terra, another name for Earth. So she was a living signal to him that the Bene Gesserit plan was known. So it's out there, I suppose, or suspected here in Jacurutu. But they hoped to revive pharaonic imperialism through him, did they? Then what was their design to force him into marrying his sister? Surely Sabiha could not prevent that. So simply put, I think Sabiha is, I think the idea is, but by the end of this chapter, I think we'll see that Namri is not really kind of working with him. I get the sense of the plan. And Gurney's starting to realize that there's an agenda. The suggestion here is her family are saving her for something or someone. Could be for Leto, could be an attempt to put their own family on the throne. Again, I haven't read too far ahead of this, or I haven't read it far ahead of this at all, so I can't remember. But so the Bene Gesserit plan we can get from this is that they hope to revive pharaonic imperialism through him. Is that the case? Then what's their design to force him into marrying his sister? So basically they're looking for, it's incest is what they're after. They want Leto to breed with Ghanima, and create an empire that's pharaonic under Leto, I suppose. It's an interesting term. The word pharaoh. I don't. Now I'm no Egyptologist, so I'm just going to go with this. But based on what I know about the pharaohs, is that the term is cognate with king, and that Egypt is not an empire, as far as I know, and does not project imperialism out into the world. As far as I would consider Egypt of the ancient world with all the pharaohs, is basically, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that what we would call Egypt is the uniting of two kingdoms, really, isn't it? Ultimately, but that's how I would view ancient Egypt over quite a different period of time, I suppose, but as a kingdom, really. I wouldn't consider it imperialistic. I don't see them, so it's just to run that term, if you like. That I would consider the term imperialism to be one that doesn't go in hand with the pharaohs. The pharaohs aren't sending their culture out to the whole world, forcing their language on everybody, their alphabet, their writing, their money systems, all of this kind of thing, and taking taxes for everyone. They deal with their own kingdoms, and they have interactions with their neighbors, etc., etc. But they're not, as far as I know, in any sense of the term, imperialistic. So what the Bene Gesserit want is a form of imperialism within the empire that is similar to what the pharaohs had. And I guess we're getting this sense of inbreeding. Possibly the way they look at it is that the optimum goal for whatever that they're up to, the Bene Gesserit, is to breed Leto with Ghanima. You know, oh, excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze, folks. I'll tell you what. Goodness gracious me. Ah, whoa. That was quite quick on the microphone mute button. I did sneeze. Excuse me. Definitely got a cold. Oh dear. So that's the two things I got from that. Is that again the Bene Gesserit are considering it's incest, it's pharaonic imperialism under Leto, and I would assume Ghanima, and marriage of Leto to Ghanima in order to produce progeny. That's what the Bene Gesserit want, and we're told his captors knew the plan though, so it's known here. And how had they learned it? They'd not shared its vision. They'd not gone with him where life became a moving membrane in other dimensions. The reflexive and circular subjectivity of the visions which revealed Sabiha were his and his alone. Yeah, there's a wee mistake where I've written, there you go, were his and his alone. Yeah. There we go. Now, again, the water rings tinkled in Sabiha's hair, and the sound stirred up his visions. He knew where he had been and what he had learned. Nothing could erase that. He was not riding a great maker palanquin now. The tinkle of water rings among the passengers, a rhythm for their passage songs. No, he was here in the cell of Jacurutu, embarked on that most dangerous of all journeys, away from the back to the sorry, I'll read this again. Away from the back to the Al As Sunnah wal Jamas, from the real world of the senses and back to that world. Now, I don't think that makes any sense, folks. Let me just check here. Now, I've underlined it in my text. It's what's written here, so I'll just read it. He was here in the cell of Jacurutu, comma, embarked on that most dangerous of all journeys, colon, away from the back to the Al As Sunnah wal Jamas, from the real world of the senses and back to that world. I don't think that makes any sense there, and I think the words the back to are superfluous. I think what it's maybe meant to say is away from the Al As Sunnah wal Jamas, from the real world of the senses and back to that world. Or it could be that. Thank you, Cynthia. It's always weird when you try to figure these things out. You go, well, it's probably that. Then you get, obviously it could be that. Right, thank you. Let's see. I'll catch up with comments just prior to that. Yeah, that just didn't seem to flow well there. Away from the back is what's in my text. There we go. And you have away from and back to. Yep, that's it. So I'm missing a word. Thank you very much. Let's draw a arrow. Put you away from. And right. From. Oh, here, hang on. No, it's not that I'm missing a word. It's actually I've got the word's been changed. I have away from the, and it should be away from and. So there is no the. No that. There we go. Sorry, bear with me. It should be and. Thank you very much. I'll just read that again, actually, just for my own benefit. Again, the water rings tinkled in Sabiha's hair, and the sound stirred up his visions. He knew where he had been and what he had learned. Nothing could erase that. He was not riding a great maker palanquin now. The tinkle of water rings among the passengers, a rhythm for their passage songs. No, he was here in the cell of Jack Urutu, embarked on that most dangerous of all journeys, away from and back to the Al As-Suna Wal Jamas, from the real world of the senses and back to that world. Thank you so much. Al As-Suna Wal Jama is the bit that I hadn't looked up in Arabic, is the people of the Sunnah and the community. Let me see. Away from and back to the people of the Sunnah and the community, from the real world of the senses and back to that world. Let me check your comments. Also becoming this Leto's death, or the first Leto, the second, he also died as cheat child on Dune. I'll back up there. Ghanima was almost overcome by her inner mother. She was more vulnerable to the parent game they played. This Leto's death, or the first Leto, the second, who also died as a child on Dune, ? Would the first Leto, the second, have been a Kwisatz Haderach too? There's no mention of him being preborn. No, there's not. We really get very little on him, don't we? Who knows? Why wouldn't he be? But again, he's killed before, and there doesn't seem to be any. Again, he's not preborn though. This is the real Leto the second. Our Leto here is technically Leto the third. But yeah, I don't see why not. There's no mention of being preborn. Yeah, I always think the death of the baby is meant to be a very casual thing in the book. I often think it's to me it's the point where you should doubt Paul, is the death of Leto, the baby Leto, and he's waiting for it. He's very much to me a shoe-in for the mythological shoe-in for the baby Leto as Iphigenia. The killing of a sacred deer, this kind of thing. China said pharaohs were more than kings; they were considered gods by the populace, to the point where they relieved themselves in the river so folks wouldn't see them have physical bodily needs. Yes, indeed, god kings and stuff like that, and inbred as well. I think as the other part that we get a level of inbreeding with the pharaohs. There's quite a bunch of them though. There's a whole lot. And we even got a couple of pre-pharaonic rulers of Egypt, I think. But yes, indeed. So this my text is away from and back to the Al As. So that's where we're catching up to. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Chaya saying, this is Cynthia saying, Chaya, Ghani's vulnerability to her inner mother may also help us understand Ghani's emotions for Irulan, a mother figure despite her resolve to strengthen herself with hate. Yeah, and it's interesting because, especially with the situation that Ghanima has created in her own mind, the kind of self-hypnotizing kind of my brother's being murdered by this lot. All of that stuff, Farad'n being a close relative to Irulan. Ultimately, I'm sure she knows how much Irulan had a hand in really her mother's death. But at the same time, there is this relationship there, and it's Ghani's emotions for Irulan, a mother figure, despite her resolve to strengthen herself with hate. It would obviously be a very complicated relationship between the two. And if personally, I think if Ghanima and Leto had real hatred for Irulan, I think they would have killed her a long time ago in the nursery. If you see what I mean. So yeah, it's that sadness again with that relationship, and you have to feel pity for Irulan. Again, the insult, the thing to barb at her, the thing to cut at her, is you're a motherless, or sorry, a childless woman. This kind of thing. I don't know. I suppose looking at birth in some ways is a form of agency within Dune. Irulan has always denied that, isn't she? It's spelled out quite specifically for what she can't have in Dune Messiah. So here we go. What was she doing with the water rings tinkling in her hair? Oh yes, she was mixing more of the brew which they thought held him captive. They thought held him captive. Food laced with spice essence to keep him half in and half out of the real universe until either he died or his grandmother's plan succeeded. And every time he thought he'd won, they sent him back. The Lady Jessica was right, of course, that old witch. Oh, but what a thing to do. The total recall of all of those lives within him was of no use at all until he could organize the data and remember it at will. Those lives have been the raw stuff of anarchy. One or all of them could have overwhelmed him. The spice and its peculiar setting here in Jacurutu have been a desperate gamble. So the suggestion is here that Leto's tricking them, mixing more of the brew which they thought held him captive. So the suggestion there is that they don't. Food laced with spice essence to keep him half in, half out of the real universe until either he died or his grandmother's plan succeeded. Every time he thought he'd won, they sent him back. But Lady Jessica was right, of course. That old witch. What a thing to do. The total recall of all those lives within him was of no use at all until they could organize the data and remember it well. So data has no meaning to humans, as we've talked about. If you organize it and give it structure and meaning, it becomes information. But I would say this, maybe it's just that there's so much other memory or so many lives that it's as useless as data to a human. Those lives have been the raw stuff of anarchy. One or all of them could have overwhelmed him. The spice and its peculiar setting here in Jacurutu have been a desperate gamble. And I think there's a little bit of an nod to our previous epigraph about environment. We get Leto's thoughts here. Now Gurney waits for the sign, and I refuse to give it to him. How long will his patience last? So what I've written next, that's just my own opinion, is that Leto is prolonging his spice experience deliberately. And we're only kind of getting a sense of that now, I think. It seemed quite perilous for a wee bit here, Chaya said it's a multiple barb towards Irulan, childless, not fulfilling her roles as a woman and as a Bene Gesserit breeder and as an imperial princess. For short in history, failure in her chosen life role. Gurney digs deep. Yeah, I thought that she really does. The history comment I thought was a bit of an interesting one. but she is poking at her. She's trying to, she's being kind of hurtful and threatening in a funny kind of way towards Irulan, but you get the sense that it's almost an act with Ghanima, that she doesn't really want to behave this way. She's steeling herself for something, possibly. But I think if she's going to kill Farad'n with this delusion in place, then she needs to get Irulan out of the way. I don't think she would really murder her. Do you? So I've got Gurney's looking for a sign, but I'm not giving it to him yet. He's delaying. He stared out at Sabiha. She'd thrown her hood back and revealed the tribal tattoos at her temples. Leto did not recognize the tattoos at first, then remembered where he was. Yes, Jacurutu still lived. So what I've written here is, so he does recognize them, but we as readers, we're kept ignorant as to what they are. And I was wondering, what are the tattoos? Because if we knew, are they a reference to the myth of Jacurutu that we know, with the turtle, etc., and that has some kind of part to do with the siege here? Or is it a reference to the siege, as these particular tattoos? But we're kept in the dark about this. We don't find out. Leto did not know whether to be thankful towards his grandmother or hate her. She wanted him to have conscious level instincts, but instincts were only racial memories of how to handle crises. His direct memories of those other lives told him far more than that. He had it all organized now and could see the peril of revealing himself to Gurney. No way of keeping the revelation from Namri. And Namri was another problem. So they want him to have conscious level instincts, but instincts were only racial memories. Again, they're wrong with the racial memory thing, of how to handle crises. If only. His direct memories of those other lives told him far more than that. Direct memories of those other lives. So it's almost like he's got a direct connection to it. He's sorted and sifted it, hasn't he? All organized now, and he could see the peril of revealing himself to Gurney. So Sabiha entered the cell with a bowl in her hands. He admired the way the light from outside made rainbow circles at the edges of her hair. Gently, I think that's the water rings, isn't it? Gently she raised her head and began feeding him from the bowl. It was only then he realized how weak he was. He allowed her to feed him while his mind went roving, recalling the session with Gurney and Namri. They believed him, Namri more than Gurney, but even Gurney could not deny with what his senses had already reported to him about the planet. So it's what do they believe? What is it that they believe him about? It's the Arrakis problem. With the desert goes the soul, the worms, etc., etc. All of that, the environmental disaster. Sabiha wiped his mouth with a hem of her robe. Ah, Sabiha, he thought, recalling that other vision which filled his heart with pain. Now, many nights have I dreamed beside the open water, hearing the winds pass overhead. Many nights my flesh lay beside the snake's den, and I dreamed of Sabiha in the summer heat. I saw her storing spice bread baked on red-hot sheets of plasteel. I saw the clear water in the Quannet, gentle and shining, but a storm wind ran through my heart. She sips coffee and eats. Her teeth shine in the shadows. I see her braiding my water rings into her hair. The amber fragrance of her bosom strikes through to my innermost senses. She torments me and oppresses me by her very existence. So a lot of sexually loaded language here. This is Leto's. This is his other vision of Sabiha that fills his heart with pain. We've got all sorts here. His nights with his flesh lay beside the snake's den. And I dreamed of Sabiha in the summer heat. So we get the bread, the red hot sheets of plasteel. We get the contrast of the clear water of Quannet, gentle and shining, a storm wind through my heart. Her teeth shine in shadows. She's a light in his darkness, if you see what I mean. The amber fragrance of her bosom strikes through to my innermost senses. She torments me and oppresses me by her very existence. Very sort of kind of, I don't know, Leopold von Sitter, what is it you call him? Von Sitter Masoch, isn't it? That kind of language. Yeah, it wrote Venus and Furs. Yeah, the language here, there's it's sexually loaded, basically. And we're heading towards this anyway. The pressure of his multi-memories exploded. If we had exploded with Ghanima in the previous chapter, then again, that makes a lot more sense. The pressure of his multi-memories exploded, the time-frozen englobement, which he had tried to resist. He felt twining bodies, the sounds of sex, rhythms laced in every sensory impression, lips, breathing, moist breaths, tongues. Somewhere in his vision there were helix shapes, cold colored, and he felt the heat, and he felt the heat of those shapes as they turned within him. A voice pleaded in his skull, please, 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 please. There was an adult beef swelling in his loins, and he felt his mouth open, holding, clinging to the girder shape of ecstasy. Then a sigh, a lingering ground swelling, sweetness, a collapse. Oh, how sweet to let that come into existence. Sabiha, he whispered. Oh, my Sabiha. When her charge had clearly gone deeply into the trance after his food, Sabiha took the bowl and left, pausing at the doorway to speak to Namri. He called my name again. Go back and stay with him, Namri said. I must find Halleck and discuss this with him. There we go. I'm open to any comments people want to make about our Frank's sexy writing here. That whole last chunk is a vision of his life, of Leto's adult life, I'm assuming, with Sabiha. He's basically getting from the vision, future memory, if you like, of the nights he spends, the location. The language is hot, sticky heat, this kind of thing. Smell of her bosom, it torments him, it oppresses him. This is a vision of real love and sexual desire of an older Leto in a relationship with this girl here, Sabiha. And the pressure of the multi-memories exploded, the time-frozen englobement, which he tried to resist. So he's feeling this. He felt the twining bodies, the sounds. So feelings, sounds, rhythms laced, sounds of sex, rhythms laced in every sensory impression. We get a colon here from Frank, followed by lips, comma, breathing, comma, moist breaths, comma, tongues. Somewhere in his vision there were helix shapes, structure of DNA, cold colored, and he felt the beat of those shapes as they turned within him. And a voice pleaded in his skull. And again, how you want to read the four pleases in a row would be, please, please. It's a sexual. I've written next to it, read it sexy. I don't know if I did or not. And there we get then the language. Here we go. There was an adult beef swelling in his loins. The beef swelling is the thing of much amusement to a lot of people, isn't it? He's got an erection, basically, is what Frank is trying to tell us. And he felt his mouth open, holding, we're getting his sex face, I suppose. Is that an orgasm face? Holding, clinging to the girder shape of ecstasy. Girders. I don't know what to make of that at all. That got me thinking, what is he possibly going on about here? The best I kind of went up with, I started heading towards Bar's Iron Brew from Girders, but sorry for anybody outside of the UK might not get that. A sigh and a lingering ground swelling, sweetness, a collapse. or beef swelling, girder shape, ecstasy, loins, ground swelling. Some, I don't know. I think it's pretty bad writing myself, but who am I to really say? Whatever you think of it, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. It's probably a tricky thing to kind of write this here, where we have a 9-year-old male child who is looking at a vision and is experiencing a vision of a sexual encounter with the woman that's in this room far in the future, in a possible future. Goodness gracious me. So it's a bit awkward, isn't it? It's a bit, I don't know. Frank has terms like this, and I think he's trying to be a wee bit Shakespearean here, isn't he? He's trying to come up with possibly a new word or something like that. But beef swelling, I don't know. As a man, I've heard all sorts of things over the years for this kind of thing. He's pitched a tent, all sorts of things. Beef, though, generally has meat, I suppose, swelling. I don't know. You got things like beef cudgel, mutton weapon, lots of euphemisms for penises and erections and stuff. But I don't know. The girder shape. I don't know. That's even worse, I think. But as I said, I don't know what you think about this, folks. I'm happy to hear your comments on Frank's sexy writing here. And this is, again, it's the language that he's dropping in before we get this kind of future memory. If you pay attention to it, we've got the heart, snakes, den, summer heat, red hot sheets. He's kind of, amber free, her bosom, torment, oppress me, all of this kind of stuff. And then he kind of gives you the, and I almost think that, the way he does that there, it's the colon bit that I find funny, to be honest with you. He felt twining bodies, the sounds of sex, rhythms laced in every sensory impression. And then it's like a list: lips, breathing, moist breaths, tongues, plus bits of saliva or something. I'll tell you what it reads like, actually. Just reading it there is it almost reads like Garth Marenghi wrote this. That's what it reminds me of. And I'm sorry to any super anybody who's offended by this. We are looking at, my main sort of approach is to look at Frank through his language, and this is one of his more interesting set of descriptives, if you like. I don't know what you think. Let me just check your comments here. Let's see. Divine says, and he felt the beat of those shapes. Did I say heat the first time? You read heat, not beat. I think that was me just stumbling over my words. Actually, I think it is beat. I think it is beat. Thank you. Yeah. No, I did stumble over it, didn't I? The beat of those shapes as they turned within him. Doom. Thank you, Chaya. So they said, it seems that Leto's mind contains a kind of kaleidoscope of fragmented sexual acts from his inner memories. Then they focus in on his own body's singular experience. My text also has beat of those shapes. Yes, sorry, folks. I had beat too. It's just I stumbled over it and read it wrong. Jericho says, I think the point is that while he tries to control and organize past and future, they can bleed into the present beyond his control. Yeah. And the question I'm kind of running with at this point is, as much as he's analyzing this, he's got these thoughts here, but then he's speaking out loud from this. I'm wondering how much of this is kind of deliberate, if you see what I mean. How is he Sabiha, he thought, recalling that other vision. So he's bringing that vision to the fore here at this time, if you see what I mean. It's a weird thing for Frank to do here, and I think the reason is that actually that Sabiha is there to sexually entice, in some shape or form, Leto, which is a bit weird. But at the same time, the choice of bringing this vision up, he thought recalling that other vision. He's saying this, he's got the thoughts going here, and then Here, is that the funny thing, actually? Hang on a second. Bear with me a wee second here. Yeah, I don't know about you, but in my copy of the book, I've actually written here, I think there's a comma missing here. I've got, Sabiha, he thought. I think there should be a comma there, recalling that other vision which filled his heart with pain. And then this is a problem in a lot of the Dune books. I don't know if you can see this. Let me see. I'll get it right here. This is the bit we're talking about down here. And what we've got is Leto's thoughts here in italics. He thought, right? And then we get to this bit. And this is still his thoughts, isn't it? Many I have dreamed beside the open water. We're getting this thought process. I don't know. It's sometimes many nights have I dreamed beside the open water. I don't know. Sorry, it's maybe me just getting that wrong here. Sometimes an extension of the character's thoughts is actually not the character, it's actually the third person omniscient narrator, if you like. But I'm getting that wrong there. Sorry, that's my own little thing here that I've done in my notes. Apologies. Yes, Amber, helix shapes. Where do we get to? And it seems to be an appealing existence to Leto, doesn't it? It doesn't seem too bad of a life. But because of that, he's chosen to have it. He's evoking the. We get his thoughts here, but then his thoughts become words. He's whispering them out now. Oh, Sabiha, oh my Sabiha, and it gets her attention. He called my name again, so it's not the first time. Go back and stay with him, says Namri. I must find how I can discuss this with him. I'm wondering, put it this way, we're about to see that. He's about to draw her in here, and I'm kind of wondering, is it a deliberate thing? My text has a come. Yeah, I've actually got quite a big gap in my text for that one. Cynthia, thank you. Yeah, it makes much better sense with that. Right, bear with me a second. Yeah, thank you. There it is. I put a big circle around it. I was pretty sure about that. Thank you very much. Who do now? Sabiha. Oh, my Sabiha. Where did we get to? Yes, that's it. So when her charge had clearly gone deeply into the trance after his food, Sabiha took the bowl and left, pausing at the doorway to speak to Namri. He called my name again. Go back and stay with him, Namri said. I must find how I can discuss this with him. Sabiha deposited the bowl beside the doorway and returned to the cell. She sat on the edge of the cot, staring at Leto's shadowed face. Presently, he opened his eyes and put a hand out, touching her cheek. He began to talk to her then, telling her about the vision in which she had lived. She covered his hand with her own as he spoke, and we get her thoughts here. How sweet he was. How very sweet. And that's her out cold. I've just put a wee bunch of Z's next to her. She sank onto the cot, cushioned by his hand, unconscious before he pulled the hand away. Leto sat up, feeling the depths of his weakness. The spice and its vision had drained him. He searched through his cells for every spare spark of energy, climbed from the cot without disturbing Sabiha. He had to go, but he knew he'd not get far. Slowly, he sealed his still suit, drew the robe around him, slipped through the passage to the outer shaft. There were a few people about, busy at their own affairs. They knew him, but he was not their responsibility. Namri and Halleck would know. Namri and Halleck would know what he was doing. Sabiha could not be far away. I wrote next to that, she's unconscious. He found the kind of side passage he needed and walked boldly down it. Behind him, Sabiha slept peacefully until Halleck roused her. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, saw the empty cot, saw her uncle standing behind Halleck, the anger on their faces. Namri answered the expression on her face. Yes, he's gone. How could you let him escape? Halleck raged. How is this possible? He was seen going towards the lower exit, Namri said, his voice oddly calm. Sabiha cowered in front of them, remembering. How? Halleck demanded. I don't know. I don't know. It's night and he's weak, Namri said. He won't get far. Halleck whirled on him. You want the boy to die. It wouldn't displease me. Again, Halleck confronted Sabiha. Tell me what happened. He touched my cheek. He kept talking about his vision. Us together. She looked down at the empty cot. He made me sleep. He put some magic on me. Halleck glanced at Namri. Could he be hiding inside somewhere? Nowhere inside. He'd be found, seen. He was headed for the exit. He's out there. Magic, Sabiha muttered. No magic, Namri said. He hypnotized you. Almost did it to me. You remember? Said I was his friend. I've just written see us in chapter 41 there. See chapter 41, note 66. Don't only say that 41. Bear with me. Wait a second, folks. We get there. What did I say? Let's have a look at that. Oh yes, go friends, Leto said. Go and reflect. Yeah, I thought his language was a little bit kind of hypnotic when reading it. It had that kind of sense about it in that chapter. He's very weak, Halleck said. Only in his body, Namri said. He won't go far though. I disabled the heel pumps of his still suit. He'll die with no water if we don't find him. Halleck almost turned and struck Namri, but held himself in rigid control. Jessica had warned him that Namri might have to kill the lad. Gods below! What a pass they'd come to. Atreides against Atreides. He said, is it possible he just wandered away in the spice trance? I actually thought that was a good question, by the way. And I've also made a wee note again about this, the Atreides against Atreides. We have kind of ignorance of the Atreides in history by Irulan in the previous chapter, and we've got it here now by Halleck. What a pass they'd come to. The thing that would be odd would be not having the Atreides against each other, you know? Saying that's Agamemnon and Menelaus, isn't it? They work together. Is it possible he just wandered away in the spice trance? What difference does it make? Namri asked. If he escapes us, he must die. We'll start searching at first light, Halleck said. Did he take a Frem kit? There's always a few beside the door seal, Namri said. He'd have been a fool not to take one. Somehow, he has never struck me as a fool. Then send a message to our friends, Halleck said. Tell them what's happened. No messages this night, Namri said. There's a storm coming. Pardon me, the tribes have been tracking it for 3 days now. It will be here by midnight. Already communications blanked out. The satellites signed off this sector 2 hours ago. I've made a wee note that this was written in 1976, but there we go. Just to say that I've made a wee note here at the top of my page that we're getting a strong contrast between the attitudes of Gurney Halleck and Namri. Gurney is really concerned for Leto here. Namri couldn't care less if he's dead. And it seems, I don't know, that Namri has a preference, I think, almost for him being dead. Whereas for Gurney, it's an absolute last resort. It's the worst thing that can happen here. It's the thing that they don't really want to happen. But I get that real sense of that with the two men, and that really Halleck wants to kill. He's maintaining control, but I think he's put Leto in an additional peril here by sabotaging his still suit. and the indifference of Namri, I think, to what would happen to Paul, or sorry, to Leto. But it's a real, I think, quite an obvious contrast between the two here. A deep sigh shook Halleck. The boy would die out there for sure if the sandblast storm caught him. It would eat the flesh from his bones and sliver the bones to fragments. The contrived false death would become real. He slapped a fist into an open palm. The storm could trap them in the siege. They couldn't even mount a search, and storm static had already isolated the siege. This trance, he said, thinking they might imprint a message onto a bat's voice and dispatch it with the alarm. I've written next to that he's grasping at straws here. Namri shook his head. Bats won't fly in a storm. Come on, man. They're more sensitive than we are. They'll cower in the cliffs until it's past. Best to wait for the satellites to pick us up again. Then we can try to find his remains. Not if he took to, and this is Sabiha here, sorry. Not if he took to, oh yeah, hang on. I think we've got a problem here in the text. Right at the end, I've got not if he took to Fremkit and hid in the sand. I think that probably should be not if he took a Fremkit and hid in the sand, Sabiha said. Halleck, then is our last bit, his cursing under his breath, Halleck whirled away from them, strode out into the siege. Not a happy bunny at all. I think quite angry with Namri's actions here. So we have, yes, indeed. That was a pretty quick wee chapter, actually. That went fast. Nothing too mad to look at. I suppose we've got a bit of funny, kind of sexy writing from Frank Herbert. I like to think of it as it's more someone who's kind of, what's the old joke? It's the difference between erotic and kinky is the difference between using a feather and a whole chicken. That's kind of what Frank's sexy writing reminds me of. I think it's, oh dear, it amuses me. And words like beef swelling and stuff like that. Not to take the piss too much or anything like that, but Frank's a bit of a Shakespeare fan, making up words like that, creating new compound word, compound neologisms, this kind of thing. Shakespeare did it all the time. And a lot of, was it eyeball? That's one, isn't it? Anyway, that's a Shakespearean word. There's all sorts there. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But it's an interesting set of language, I suppose. And I think, was it Carlos or something that said just before we got started tonight, just something worse than the pink sausage thing here. But you can see where he's going with this kind of thing. I will point out that I don't, and Frank isn't one of them, by the way. But there's a whole bunch of sci-fi writers who are writing, in addition. I don't know how you would put it. Books like kind of Mills and Boons, these kind of things, and sexy novels, this kind of thing way back then. There's a lot of them double up. I'll read you a list of them. Actually, you might find this interesting. I've actually got a list of them on the sort of stuff that they did. But clearly Frank wasn't one of them. So it's interesting because I'm wondering how much of what's happening with Leto here is engaging with the prescient vision, and as much as we're talking about that, why this vision, he's recalling this vision at this point. It's a vision he's had before, and he's bringing it up now. Why? To draw in Sabiha, to knock her out, to make his escape, but his timing's impeccable here. And essentially the way that the storm is being described is it's a bit one of these great grandmothers of all storm type things that's coming in at the moment. The Fremen Jackroot who can't leave the siege because of it. Leto's out, and if he doesn't have a Frem kit, it'll destroy him. So we've got a building of tension, excitement. Leto's escaped from his prison. And it seems that we've all been deceived a little bit, I think, here. And I think this is what's clever in this chapter, is that Leto seems to have been here for as long as he wanted to be. He's drawn things out, and I think it's to consume, to keep eating at the spice, to keep pursuing and investigating the visions that he's having. He's appeared to play the game with Namri and Gurney, and he has played the game, but now he's away, and he's on his own terms now. Let me just catch up. So yeah, another fascinating and a wee bit of a fun chapter from my point of view. Anyway, I kind of enjoyed looking at it. So I checked out a few of the Beefswelling memes that are on the internet. Just a few. I didn't have time to really muck around with them. Now, let me just catch up with your beat of the shapes that plays which is the controller as the past of fuse they can bleed into the present beyond his control. Yes, I think that's generally the thing, that they're always moving. What you're bringing in from into the present from the future or the past is going to affect the past, isn't it? For Sabiha, he thought. Oh yeah. I'm gonna pop that one in. Let's have a look. Oh, did anybody? Oh, I must check. I must back up actually here. Hang on a second. My text has a comment. Sabiha, he thought, recalling. Oh, bear with me. Sorry. Number 10, bear with me, please. Let's have a wee look. Sabiha, comma, he thought, yeah, that's the one I've already got. Thank you very much. Didn't think there was an extra comma. He thought, comma, recalling. Missing comma is what I have written there. There we go. Popped it in. So just catching up here. Carl saying she's the temptation to make him stray from the golden path, much as Chani was to Paul. Yeah, I think that's the intent here with Sabiha. I don't think it's part of any of Jessica or the Bene Gesserit's plan. I think it's, and again, I haven't read ahead, but I got the gist that it was something to do, especially when we're told about her family. Was it her age of why she's 2 years past the age when most Fremen women were wed or at least betrothed. Therefore, her family was saving her for something or someone. I think she's absolutely enticed. An attempt to, as you put it, Carlos, make him stray from the golden path, much as Chani was to Paul. Jericho, he hypnotized her. I heard you instead of her. Oh God, that's probably me again, Chai. I'm just stumbling over my word. My teeth are bouncing around today. Let me just double check for you. All right, he hypnotized her. Yeah, no magic. Namri said he hypnotized her. Almost did it to me. You remember? He hypnotized her. I heard you. Yeah, it's probably. I've been stumbling over a few words tonight, Chai. I do apologize. It happens now and then. And something said, my text has not if he took a frame kit. That would make sense. Yes, indeed. Oh, the number of wee little mistakes that are in this. I've got he took 2 frame kit. TO10. But I've scribbled in A. Which right at the very end of the chapter too. Yeah. Might as well write it in the text. I just put wee rings around the text in the book, my books, until I can confirm it. There you go. He took 2. Sorry, waiting for the camera to focus there. There you go. 2 frame. It's not doing a good job tonight, is it? Oh, not worried about that. But there we go, folks. So he's escaped. And off he goes. Let me just have a wee quick nosy. So this in Jack Rudy appears to specialize in training companions for the Atreides. Javid for Alia, Tariq for Paul, and now Sabiha for Leto. Interesting. Very well spotted, Cynthia. Yeah. What's the end goal here for these? Is it a power grab? I'm wondering. Let's have a wee nosy. What are we doing tonight? This was 44 and 45, wasn't it? 46. Let's have a look. Oh, for my sins. I suppose this is a good. We are accelerating in down towards the end of the book with this. So next week, folks, again, we're going to have 2 chapters. Um, Going probably the week after that. Yeah, we're hitting lots of these little quick double chapters. So next week, folks, just before we wrap up for the night, we'll be doing chapters 46 and 47 at 10 p.m. GMT +1 as normal. So yeah, that went on a bit longer than I thought. Actually, I thought we'd be through that pretty quick, but there you go. Yes, indeed. Listen, that's been. I'm going to wrap up very quickly, folks. Actually, because I'm absolutely shattered and I'm starving as well. Let's just catch any wee glass comments if you have for questions far away. Julian saying the beef swelling neologism reminds me of sticky gum jelly lips, sexual memory, and Ulysses. I think it's the last Dragonians chapter. Oh yeah. What was it? What's my all-time favorite one? I think is that he put his purple-headed love monster into her quivering love pudding. Um, Purple head. Yeah, that's I think my favorite. I don't know who wrote that. Maybe it was me. I don't know. God, I hope not. But the purple-headed love monster into the quivering love pudding is one that's stuck in my head over the years in terms of that kind of writing. But yeah, incidentally, I'm sure you all know this. There's awards given out for the worst sexy writing, if you like, in literature every year. I must look it up actually. I don't know what it's called, but that's I've nosy at this stuff before, and it's quite fun to read some of these things, The sticky gums. uh, Pardon me. Mm. So they said thanks, Doc, and all. Yeah, I love deliberately ridiculous sex writing, if you like. I think it can be real fun. Sharon said, yes, thanks to Doc and all. Great discussion. Good night. Jen said, night, Doc. Carlos says, sink you with my pink torpedo spinal tap. Yes, indeed. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, I can, yeah, yeah. No, I'll not go there. Not tonight, folks. But yes, listen, the crack's been mighty, as they say in this country, folks. So thank you very much, as always, for your contributions, your questions, your comments, for keeping me right. You know who you are, because I do make the odd wee mistake and occasionally miss things, and you are very good at spotting it. So it's been an interesting couple of chapters. We're piling forward. We're moving back and forth between the twins. Things are kicking off, and now we've got Leto on the move. Gurney Halleck not happy, and it looks like, yeah, I suppose the strong desire, what the Bene Gesserit are after. We're getting a bit of insight into them in this chapter, aren't we? And I think the only other wee thing I wanted to say is I think I think there's real foreshadowing in the epigraph to chapter 44, the previous chapter, just that little mention about new questions which Leto and the sisterhood may attempt to answer over the next 500 generations. Certainly the sisterhood are going to have a role in what's going on. But but we're going to see Leto, I suppose, take control of the breeding program, aren't we? But there we go, folks. Yes, well, listen, it's just literally a couple of minutes to half one, so I'm very long-winded about this, so I will say good night, folks. I had some dodgy food yesterday. It's been bugging me, and I ended up with a pot noodle tonight, so not good, but I'm knackered and I need some food. So anyway, I will say thank you very much as always. It's been great fun today. Some fun things to look at, some interesting stuff to look at, and we're pushing on towards the back of the book now. Tensions building, things are driving, things are moving forward, not quite at full speed. And I think it's interesting that Farad's taking his time to get to the wedding, if you like. Interesting relationships, I think, as well. We're looking at Irulan and Ghanima, and it's not quite the connection you have between Leto and Gurney, I think, in this, but I think you can see some of the real feelings of Gurney kind of starting to emerge in this chapter towards Leto. Though Gurney's not happy in the position he's in, I think, at this point. And I think as things have progressed, he's becoming wary of, if I'm not, again, I haven't read forward from here, wary of Namri at the very least. I think he's very angry, possibly wanted to kill him here. Pardon me, for putting Leto at risk, Anyway, that'll do. We're just about to hit half one, so I'll wrap it up, folks. I'll say thank you very much. All the very best. Good night. Look after yourselves. Take care. Be safe no matter where you are. And yeah, we'll see you next Thursday at 10, sorry, not 10:30. See, I'm tripping over my language. We'll see you next Thursday at 10 p.m. GMT +1 for 2 more chapters of Children of Dune, chapters 46 and 47, I believe. All right, folks, take it easy. Good night and all the best. Bye-bye.